And away we go on a Monday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. James Westling is off today. Taman Turner producing along with Anthony Smith back at our Big 12 studio headquarters. Great to have you with us on this Monday. With Christmas this week, we've got a couple of shows to do for you and, of course, get you ready for the Big 12 Bowl games, which start on Saturday. Of course, the college football playoff started this weekend, and what an incredible start to the football holiday season. What a incredible football weekend this was. I mean, if you were not entertained with football and engorged with football, basically from Friday night when Oklahoma and Alabama kicked things off, all the way into Saturday, which had college football games on all day, plus the NFL on at night with an insane finish for my Bears over the Packers. And then Sunday, more great football all day. I mean, it basically started Friday night and ended all the way Sunday night with a great game between Buffalo and New England last night.
Baltimore, not Buffalo.
Thank you. Yeah, wrong B. With the Baltimore Ravens and the New England Patriots. I mean, it was a fantastic football weekend. You know, and it's funny, too, that most of the commentary coming out of this weekend centers on the group of five inclusion into the college football playoff. And we'll get there. But I think there's a lot of interesting facets that have been a part of this chorus of people, you know, out to get the group of five for not showing up in the college football playoff. And I get it. We all wanted to be entertained for 60 minutes of football all the time. But I think it's bigger picture than that. Elsewhere in the college football playoff over the weekend, the former Big 12 teams flopped in a major way. Oklahoma had a 17-0 lead on Bama. And, I mean, they were in complete control. When you consider, you know, Brent Venables is a defensive-minded coach, and you know how dominant of a defense Oklahoma had at times this year. You're thinking 17-0 OU at home with this defense, and they just completely flopped on special teams, on defense, on offense, in every way. Collapsed against an Alabama program that they had won coming into that 5 of their last 6. But Bama flexed its muscles, and they move on to the Rose Bowl now. Bama and Indiana in the Rose Bowl. And then how about Texas A&M? A&M all year was a really good defensive team, really good offensive team. They could run the ball really well, especially with quarterback Marcel Reed. And they just could not run the ball at all against this Miami front that was way more disruptive than A&M was. In fact, the A&M offensive front, their left tackle was talking smack heading into this game about how they weren't even worried about Miami. And another one of the former Big 12 teams that completely flops on the big stage. With A&M, I mean, you think about, they started 11-0. They end up losing to Texas. They lose to their rival. They don't play for an SEC championship. And they lose at home in a first-round playoff game. And what was the final score of this one? It's like 10-3. I mean, look, I get that there were some blowouts, but 10-3? Holy hell. And the 10 was at the end of the game. It was 3-3 in the entire game. Not exactly the most entertaining game to watch, and it wasn't great football. But, yeah, I mean, in some ways you kind of feel bad for the Aggies because this is just the same thing that happens to the Aggies every single time. You have this great season, and then it ends in a complete and utter disappointment. I mean, there's like nothing for the Aggies to be excited about, given that they started 11-0, they lost to Texas. They didn't beat their rival. They lose to Texas. They don't play in the SEC championship, and then they flop in their college football playoff appearance. So good on the Ags for being Aggie, going full Aggie. But the larger prevailing narrative to come out of this weekend was, once again, the group of five not showing itself well, you know, in the playoff against power opponents. And, I mean, Tulane was completely overmatched. So was James Madison. Now, the score in the second half made that game a lot more interesting, and maybe we can indict Oregon's defense a bit. 51-34 is the final score in the Oregon-James Madison game. But, I mean, Oregon scored touchdowns on his first 5 possessions of this football game. And, I mean, none of those touchdown drives took more than 5 plays. I mean, if you watched the first half of this game, you kind of saw all you needed to see. And then, Dan Lanning after the game was, he was complaining a bit about the standard for Oregon and how this did not live up to it. And I get it, but, at times he had third and fourth string defenders in there. I mean, they were just trying to run the clock out. So, I mean, James Madison was able to do some things offensively against them in the second half, but I don't know how concerned I would be if I'm Oregon. I mean, I think my concerns are much larger heading into their Orange Bowl game against Texas Tech on January 1st. And, of course, we'll be previewing that game on today's show and tomorrow's show and kind of throughout the week here on Big 12 Radio, on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. But I think the bigger piece to, the larger discussion, and again, I mean, Oregon blows out James Madison. It was 34-6 at halftime. James Madison scored 28 second-half points. Again, made it a little bit more interesting, but for the most part, this game was never in doubt. And, especially as we preview this game from the Texas Tech point of view, you kind of look at some of the areas of oh, okay, is this, did what they do against James Madison, is that sustainable all against Tech? And I think a lot of it isn't. Right? I mean, it starts for me with James Madison defensively was good in some of the metrics all season long, but didn't play the opponents that they had to play, of course, in this situation here. And, I mean, looked a lot more like a G5 program based on that more than anything else. But, I'm curious, Taman Turner, our producer, what you thought of this. All the discussions around the group of 5 right now are centered on the fact that they were so overmatched in this one situation. And, on spec, yeah, totally. Should Notre Dame have gotten those spots or whatever? I mean, the old argument of the more powerful teams, the better recruiting classes, you don't even need to play the games to know that they're just better off in a better position to win those games. But, I mean, is this really what it's about? Is it about, how close you can make it? Or is it about making the regular season more interesting? Because that's what I thought the goal of this playoff is to make the regular season far more interesting for more programs. And that seemed to be the case this season. I mean, Tulane and James Madison and all of the corresponding ACC championship games, everything else was made more interesting over the course of the season for a lot of different fan bases and a lot of places because of those teams' inclusion. Now, they're not as good as Cincinnati when they made the 14 playoff, not as good as Boise last year, and so maybe the one spot is better for the group of 5 because, there needs to be sort of a transcendent group of 5 team that can compete with the power programs. But I don't know, Tim, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think the goal is to make the regular season more interesting. And when you look at, we discussed it all throughout the season. When you look at the Notre Dames, you look at the Texases, I mean, we can make a strong argument they didn't deserve to make it. Even though they might have been more competitive in these games. I don't think anybody doubts that.
What criteria do you think that they should use?
I think regardless of whatever criteria, it's always going to be criticized because there's always going to be a team that's out that says, well, that should have been us. I think Notre Dame was trolling on Twitter, or one of their fan pages was like, well, that should have been us against Miami and Texas A&M. But the criteria in and of itself, listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the criteria is, but this is what I do know.
I just mean, do you think that they should have automatic bids for conference champions? Or, I mean, because maybe you just go with the top 12 teams. Because even in the situation now, this year, that will play out in the future, Duke is going to get in, right? So instead of James Madison, you get Duke. And maybe Duke would have put up a bigger fight against Oregon. I don't know. They had 5 losses. But, there's no foolproof process that they can undergo because, there's always going to be exceptions. Not every year, right? In some years, maybe Miami is in position to win the ACC. And because of that, you're going to get the best teams. Maybe just go with the 12 top-ranked teams.
I think that
puts way more of an onus on the committee.
Yeah, I think that would make it a lot more interesting and I think more deserving. I'll give an example, BYU. I think they should have been in the playoff. I think if you go with the top 12 teams, let's take the team that didn't make it, Utah. They went 10-2 this year, right? If they had finished, yeah, I think they would have been more competitive than what we saw this weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, it comes down to the dudes you have up front. I mean, Oregon's got a decent amount of NFL players.
Right.
Texas Tech has a decent amount of NFL players. That's going to be a really good matchup on January 1st. But, like, James Madison has one or two, maybe.
And no disrespect to James Madison or Tulane. They got in based on the criteria that's currently set.
Right.
But there were other teams that should have been there, and some of those teams that we just listed that should have been there.
You know, I think the other thing, and this is really maybe the most important point about the inclusion of these programs is, you know, there is now a larger discrepancy between how good the group of 5 teams are and how good the P4 is. Whereas, you know, years ago they were closer because of the transfer portal, because of coaches jumping jobs. I mean, it really is in some ways a relegation system already. You know, we've talked about kind of the future of college sports looking like a relegation system. We sort of already have that, right? The amount of money and access to money that you have, you know, as much as we at the Big 12 will look up from a television revenue standpoint to the SEC and the Big 10, like it's that much more divided in terms of the group of 5 versus the Power 4, like significantly more. And, you know, because of that, where we are at the Power 4 level, we're going to have access to a lot more money, not just through television revenue, but through competition and then having access to billionaires. And we'll get to that with Kenny Dillingham in a second. But, I mean, the ability to retain players, I mean, just look at what happens to the group of 5 every year. I mean, they get plucked. When Power 4 programs are looking to solidify their rosters, they're plucking the best players from the group of 5. They're plucking the best coaches from the group of 5. I mean, Tulane and James Madison, the two teams that made the playoff, lost their coaches. It's going to happen every single year. So, you know, the reason, in some ways, you could argue for the group of 5 is the less access that they get, the more that's likely to happen. Now, granted, the money's going to be larger anyways, but the more you shut off access, the less you've incentivized any of those coaches or players to stay at that level. Now, they're not doing it anyways, but the less access you cut off, the more likely it is that they're going to leave anyways.
I know you mentioned it just a second ago, but this is the perfect example of what, in a segue, of what Kenny Dillingham was kind of talking about at Arizona State. I mean, you just mentioned Tulane, like, losing their coaches and stuff. Like, you need to have the money to sustain these guys, and some of these programs just don't have it. And that's why they lose their guys.
Right. I mean, and we see what Texas Tech has done to raise the floor from the Big 12, and from a spending perspective, BYU is catching up. I mean, every program is doing whatever they can. You know, Kansas got a sizable investment that over time will grow for them to be able to, you know, to have access. But yeah, here's Kenny Dillingham when he signed an extension finally that got solidified and done with Arizona State, which made all the Arizona State fans, I'm sure, breathe a sigh of relief. Kenny Dillingham will not be going to Michigan. He's going to be staying at Arizona State. And here's what he said following news about his extension.
We need to find one of these really rich people in this city to step up and stroke a check, and I'll do everything I can to make you the most famous person in the city, right? That's really what we need. We need one person. We live in Phoenix, Arizona. You're telling me there's not one person who can stroke a $20 million check right now? There is somebody out here who can. There's somebody who can. There's somebody. And, like, other people are going to sacrifice to be here. Somebody step up and be that dude to say, holy cow, what completely changed it? This person. There's somebody out there that's going to listen to this, that's going to get it forwarded it. If you know somebody who can do it, forward this message to somebody. Somebody can step up and completely take this place from the direction it's going to holy cow. And it's right here in the city.
I mean, that's an amazing clip from a sitting head coach in college football. It's the level of awareness for Kenny Dillingham is just routinely off the charts. And this is just, you know, it's funny because in some ways, excuse me, in some ways you like expect to hear something like this from a coach. In some ways it's shocking to hear it, you know, like Scott Frost, the UCF coach, complains all the time about NIL. Scott Frost should be saying the same thing. I'm in Orlando, Florida. You mean to tell me that there isn't somebody here that could stroke a $20 million check to help out this program that I can make famous? I mean, that is insane that Kenny Dillingham gets in front of a microphone and says that, and yet it's insanely amazing because he's exactly right. He's exactly right. You know, not every college town in America you can go on in front of a camera with a microphone and say this.
That's so Kenny Dillingham, though. It's the perfect. I mean, he's been upfront and honest about what he's wanted from the get-go. I know there was all the rumors about him going to Michigan, but he was straight up saying, "I'm not going. I'm staying here."
Yeah.
He was basically telling the program and the community, "Step up."
Well, and he's basically taking a goodwill from the standpoint of, which sounds kind of ridiculous because he's going to get like $7.5 million a year, whatever it is. But like the goodwill is, hey, I lost my quarterback. I've lost my best player because we don't have the money, the resources to keep him right now. But that's okay because I'm blindly putting faith in the fact that this market will eventually give me the billionaires that I desire. And, I mean, maybe it's about winning more and showing up more. I mean, Kenny's won about as much as you could possibly win given the situation for Arizona State in his first 3 years, considering where the program was. And I mean, you're right. This is very Kenny Dillingham. He's not beating around the bush. He's not, pulling on anyone's leg. He is just laying it out as it is. Hey, this is the situation. This is the price of doing business. And I've got to believe there's some billionaire in Phoenix that wants to become famous. Because that's just, they're everywhere. I mean, you think about Scottsdale, that area, like there's tons of billionaires.
The Arizona State AD was talking about some of the backlash that he got from students and when it came to Dillingham's contract. And he was like, we have, alumni who can contribute. And I know we mentioned this on a previous show, James Harden. He makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
Is there a check there?
Yeah, and that's just one.
Yeah,
I mean,
one of many.
Yeah, like that's a very high profile. You don't need to make James Harden famous if you're Arizona State, but yeah, I mean that's just one multi-millionaire. There's plenty of billionaires in Scottsdale to go around. And again, if I'm Scott Frost, like this is what you should be doing instead of complaining about NIL and the state of college football. Like I get it, but like instead you probably want to be more proactive and being like, hey, where are the millionaires in Orlando? I know they exist. Where are the billionaires in Orlando? I know they exist. Support this program. So it's an interesting time. And again, it speaks to the in many ways what the group of five is up against when it comes to these playoff games. And maybe they don't deserve a seat at the table. You cut off access even more, and you run the risk of losing the players and coaches even worse. Maybe the risk is already there, and the toothpaste is out of the tube, so it doesn't even matter. The suggestion from Saban, you have your own playoff. I mean, I think that even becomes more of a relegation system. And again, I think it downplays the importance of every one of the games. You have so many programs that were FCS level that spent the money to get to the FBS in order to have a seat at this table. And to be like, well, why don't you guys hold your own playoff? I mean, that's basically like relegating it to another FCS type playoff. Maybe to be more entertaining. Or maybe all of these losses make the eventual win within the group of five that much sweeter, that much crazier, if and when it happens. A lot to get to when it comes to the playoff, including, of course, the Orange Bowl preview with Texas Tech and Oregon, the game we thought we were going to get, we ended up getting, of course. Plus, a lot to get to from this basketball weekend as we saw some big-time wins. Texas Tech over Duke. My goodness, was that incredible. Houston over Arkansas. Also saw some tough losses, including Cincinnati losing to Clemson after clawing its way back. Let's get into it all with Fran Fraschilla, our buddy. Fran Fraschilla, of course, from ESPN, and our Big 12 college basketball insider joining us next. Taman Turner producing. I am Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 today, Big 12 Radio. Great to have you with us in this Christmas week. And we are excited to be joined right now by our friend Fran Fraschilla, the great basketball mind, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Fran is joining us from the D.C. area where he's out with his son, who's an assistant coach of the Washington Wizards. What's going on, Fran? How are you?
Ari, it's a beautiful time of year.
Yeah,
I'm back on the East Coast where I grew up, and going to spend some family time with the boys. Matt and Harvard are playing St. John's tomorrow night. I'll be up in New York, and then we'll spend a few days in D.C. And then I open up my Big 12 season with a good one, actually. Oklahoma State going to Texas Tech. Oklahoma State, one loss. Texas Tech coming off an incredible weekend, which still defies logic, but not when you think about Grant McCasland and the job he does at Texas Tech. So a great win for them over Duke for sure.
Yeah, and let's start right there because I completely agree. Now, were you at the Garden for this one?
Nope. Where was I? We were actually in flight. I got to DC Saturday early evening. I got to watch really probably the last 30 minutes of that game. So
Well, that was that was the 30 minutes to watch.
yes, for sure.
And Tech,
Yeah.
I mean, Fred, Tech was in kind of a need of one of these wins because it felt like things had just not come together for them. They probably had their worst win of the non-conference by giving up 90 points to Northern Colorado. So what'd they do to Duke here in the second half of this game to pull out the victory, an incredible, improbable victory here for Tech?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, you have to keep in mind they've been without 2.5
Yeah, right.
players. You know, Ben Goyes played a little bit, the transfer from VCU, but Mosley hasn't played at all. Josiah Mosley, a young man from transfer from Villanova, who really fits the Texas Tech mold. The other big kid, and I don't want to botch his name.
Bob Boye.
Yeah, well, Bomboye, yeah, but I'm thinking of the other kid. Begins with an A. I'll tell you in a second. I don't think he's even played at all, if much.
I'm trying to look it up. No worries, Fred.
Quintock.
Yes.
Mario Quintock. Sorry, Mario, if you're listening to Big 12 Radio. But they haven't really been whole, and so despite the fact that they have, three excellent players, it's been a struggle. And I know defensively, Grant has felt that they haven't been the same
Right.
in terms of grit, but they showed it, and I think that's the fact that they beat a team like Duke at the Garden down 17 says a lot about what we already know about Grant McCasland, but it says a lot about the guys that are figuring out what Texas Tech basketball is all about, and Atwell and those transfers. JT Toppin's an All-American. I think Christian Anderson is certainly playing himself into that category, and then Lawan Watts, a kid that I loved last year. I was one of the few people to see him in person because he played with Cedric Coward, who's now in the NBA. So it was incredible. It was a test of wills, a test of grit, and to do what they did, I think that's arguably, if not the best win of the college basketball season by a team, certainly in the top 3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'd say it's probably the best win of the Big 12 non-conference, which says a lot because, Arizona started the non-conference knocking off the defending champs. They've won 5 games against top 25 opponents.
Yeah.
But, I think the circumstances, I agree with you. This is probably the biggest win of the Big 12 non-conference slate.
Yeah, and I think it also shows, I said this last year, the one issue with the Big 12 at the moment is, there's a couple actually, but we know KU and Baylor are not where we expected them to be based on the last 10 to 20 years. And yet they're still solid teams. It certainly looks like both are heading to the NCAA tournament. But with expansion, we still haven't had the bottom of, we haven't had a chance to see Alex Jensen's team at Utah fully form yet, and Arizona State coming off a tough year, and they had a tough loss yesterday. They've been better. The bottom of the league, UCF's been terrific. Cincinnati, a team that I was really high on, is not playing well. But having said that, and the reason I mention that is not to denigrate the bottom of the league, it's just to say, with expansion, 16 instead of 10, it behooves 16 teams to be really good.
Yeah.
Unlike what we were used to 3 years ago. So doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that the top of the Big 12 is without a doubt the best in college basketball. If you take the top 6 to 8 teams, it's clearly the best league at the top for sure.
Fran, you mentioned both Arizona State and Cincinnati. Very curious for your thoughts on those two teams. Arizona State falling at home to Oregon State 78-75 in a game they led that Oregon State rallied late for. Arizona State has some good wins. What's your kind of big picture take on Arizona State? And then the other side of that, Cincinnati losing to Clemson in a game where Clemson built a huge lead, but Cincinnati came back. It's been a very disappointing season for Wes Miller's crew so far.
I was in Cincinnati in early October, and I've had high hopes for them, and they just haven't been able to put it together. They did get Jizzle James back, which is going to help them, but not the way people think. It's not like Isaiah Thomas is joining the team or some great guard. No disrespect to Jizzle.
Right.
Arizona State, I say up until yesterday, was a team that was a surprise. And I have to tell you from experience, honestly, Ari, the game before Christmas stinks. Because if you lose it, it just puts a pall over your Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
And so I watched most of that game. I didn't watch the end, but once they took the lead at the end of the half and early second half, and they got up, last night before I went over to the Wizards game, they were up 8 or 10, and so I was disappointed for them that they didn't hold on to that lead. And but they were in a dogfight from the opening tip. So kudos to Wayne Tinkle and Oregon State, who, by the way, has 3 starters in the Big 12 this year. From last year's Oregon State team. There's Parsifala at Oklahoma State, the young Lithuanian at TCU, and Michael Ratai down at Baylor. So crazy to think that he has to keep replenishing his roster because they don't have NIL, and 3 of those guys are starting in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, great point. And we were just talking about that when it came to football. The college football playoff. The group of 5 is so much further than the Power 4 simply because, like, you've got the Tulane coach going to the Power 4. You've got the James Madison coach. So, I mean, the same point is in football, too, where, as much as the Big 12 looks up to the SEC and the Big 10 in terms of television revenue and money, the group of 5 is in a way worse position both in basketball and football in terms of losing their best players every year.
Yeah, those group of 5 guys. I don't want to talk about anybody who hasn't thought about transferring just yet. But if you're playing at Tulane or James Madison, obviously with their coach leaving for UCLA, it's a weird time.
Yeah.
It really is. We're all getting used to it. The crazy thing about it is I'm not for all this upheaval, and yet we've had some of the best college basketball we've seen in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy.
Right.
But when I look at let's talk Arizona for a second.
Sure.
Arizona is perfect because they've taken a couple transfers, but Jaden Bradley, one of their transfers, is going to be a 3-year starter. And then you've got all those precocious freshmen who are playing great. At least 4 of them are in the rotation now. Krivas was a recruit. Koa Pete mentioned they have a good blend of a couple transfers. Tobe Awaka has been great. He transferred from Tennessee. So it's the new normal in college basketball, and the Big 12 has certainly benefited from the transfer route as well.
Yeah. What do you make of Oklahoma State? They had to survive against Cal State Fullerton, but they've been off to a really good start. Lost their first game last weekend to Oklahoma. What do you make of Oklahoma State? Are they legit?
To be determined, but I have no doubt that Steve Lutz is legit.
Yeah.
He's a tremendous coach, and I think what he's done just in year 2 to get this team to where they're going to likely head into Big 12 play with, I think 12-1 maybe. I'm not sure. I think they're 10-1 right now, but somewhere in that ballpark. He's doing a great job because he's a tremendous coach. He knows the league. He knows Texas, where he's going to recruit a lot. I'm excited to see that game out in Lubbock on the 3rd because it's a great test for Oklahoma State. I think Steve would probably tell you that defensively he's concerned right now. Because they have given up points to Oklahoma late. Kansas City was kind of going to the dentist chair, and then this game against Fullerton, but yet they're winning, and they've got good Power 4 wins already, or Power 5, I would guess. But and they can score. They have a lot of guys that can score. There's a lot of offensive firepower on that roster, and so yeah, I'm excited about what. If I was a Cowboy fan, I would be really pleased with year 2.
Yeah, well said. Fran Fraschilla joining us here, analyst, of course, for ESPN Television and one of our Big 12 basketball insiders joining us here on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Curious for if you were to advise your son James, who is an assistant coach at Washington, if they're taking in the top 5, let's just say they're taking number 1 overall. Who would you advise Washington to take number 1 overall?
I don't know yet. I'm being honest. I'm not sure. First of all, I disdain mock drafts in November and December. I think it's stupid. And listen, they all work for media outlets. I get that. I shouldn't really denigrate them, but like, just so you know, the NBA teams, by and large, they start meeting in mid-January, because by then they have 2 months of data, right? You know, the Wizards, the Jazz, all the teams at the bottom of the NBA right now, they've got scouts everywhere. They're watching every single game that AJ DeBanza plays, or Boozer, or Peterson's healthy. And in mid-January, they start formulating their preliminary list. I would say that the Peterson thing is concerning because at Kansas, and only because there's been a history of guys who've been great players who come into the NBA. Joel Embiid's a good example. Kyrie's another example of guys with great talent who at times play like NBA Hall of Famers and All-Stars. But then when you look at their history, like, I think Joel's only averaged 50 games a year in his career.
Right.
And Kyrie's in that same boat, so that's a concern. I mean, Darren Peterson's a great player, and I really hope he's back healthy. I would say the guy that's been so impressive to me, and I saw him at the Garden a couple weeks ago, and I saw him before that in Orlando, is AJ DeBanza, because DeBanza, I guess, I got to be careful, because when I've seen AJ in the past, and I've watched him a lot, and I'm going to give you a little insight here, okay? This is what I think. He's one of those guys that people will say, well, he's not always going hard. Completely not true. When he's on the USA under-19 team, and I've used this example, I'm sorry, Finland, for doing this to you, but when USA is beating Finland by 40, he's getting 12, 8, and 6. Then when it comes to the gold medal game against Germany, he gets the MVP. And he's very conscious of making sure his teammates are involved. And I think that happened early in the season at BYU, and I have a feeling that Kevin Young said to him, listen, I love the fact that you're unselfish. We do have Richie Saunders. We do have Rob Wright. But we need you to be a superstar. And I think the last 5 games, he's averaging like 26, 9, and 5. And I think that's an indication that even when you're playing a low major team, that he's actually starting to dominate those games too. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing from him. And if he keeps doing this, he's already in position to be in the top 3. I think he's got a real chance to be number 1. I'm not saying he's number 1 yet, because I love Boozer, I love Peterson, I love Caleb Wilson at North Carolina. Kingston Flemings is a kid that's going to just continue to burst on the scene the way he has at Houston. But AJ is really special. My analogy for AJ, Ari, and no one's ever said this, because everybody says Tracy McGrady. He reminds me, if Kevin Garnett came back in a small forward body, it would be AJ.
Oh, yeah,
AJ,
good call.
Yeah, AJ's got so much toughness and grit, and the same kind of like competitive attitude, I think. But I love the fact that he's dominated games lately, and that was evident in the Garden against Clemson, obviously.
And just to reiterate, because I'm sort of in the same page as you on Darren Peterson, you think, I've heard some say, oh, this will have no bearing on where he's drafted, but you think, you brought up the Embiid and Kyrie thing, and I completely agree with you.
Oh, it is.
You think that will play in terms of the evaluation?
I think if it lingers, it has to, because you got to understand now, these are business decisions.
Right.
I mean, you got to go to an owner and say, look, we're going to give this, he's going to be the number 1 or number 2 pick, and we're going to give him $20 million in the first contract. Oh, by the way, he's got some, cramping issues and some hamstring issues. So I've been told by NBA scouts who I trust that the hamstring's not a big deal for a young player, but if it lingers, it becomes a bigger deal, because that then could lead to other injuries. We've seen We've seen, and again, God forbid this happens, but we've seen calf issues turn into Achilles injuries. So NBA teams are gonna go over him with a fine-tooth comb in the spring and at the combine. You can just guarantee that. Having said that, I've seen him in person at his best, and the kid's phenomenal. There's no question. But we all want to see him back on the court healthy, and I know we'll see. Maybe when they play Davidson, I think coming up here today or tomorrow. I'm not sure.
Yeah, tomorrow. Tonight. Yeah, tonight.
Tonight. Okay, so we'll see. But I think Bill Self's. See, here's the other thing for the team itself is even if you say, okay, we can guarantee he's going to be 100% healthy by January 3rd. Now he's got to get back in and resume, figuring out his teammates. Because if you remember, even in the Missouri game, which we did, Tom Hart and I, he had a quiet 17 to 23 minutes, but he just didn't look like the explosive athlete that I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, no, you're right.
We'll see. I'm hoping for the best.
It's really interesting. I mean, the whole year has been bizarre with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the hamstring, it's the quad, it's cramps, he's sick.
Well, the problem is that, and listen, Kansas fans are as passionate as they get, and everybody has a conspiracy theory. So
myself included, Fran.
Yeah, I hear you. I think the kid definitely wants to get on the court, and quite honestly, if he doesn't play the rest of the year, I don't see how that makes him the number one pick.
Right, I agreed.
It's not when you have Boozer and DeBanza there,
right.
Maybe other guys. So I'm sure he wants to get back on the court, and but I also think that Bill Self is going to be very careful. Because if there's another major injury and he misses 4 weeks, then that puts a major crimp in Kansas potential.
I mean, yeah, and can you just speak to that as a former coach? Like,
yeah,
at what point in your mind is it like, no, this is the team we have. We've got to move forward with this team and this group because we're too close to the tournament.
Yeah, see, I honestly don't think they're a tournament team without him. I mean, I think it could be close. They could be like a team on the bubble, but everybody. See, here's what I think, I think, Gabe, Vincent Council. If you can promise 36 every night, then yeah, Kansas can beat anybody. Okay, and I'm talking about the great game at NC State, but and I don't. This is not a negative. It's just a fact, in my opinion. Of course, maybe it's my opinion, not a fact, but they should have beat Notre Dame and Syracuse in Vegas. Okay, they should have, even if DP didn't play. The Tennessee win was a tremendous win, because that was a grit, toughness win over a tough team. A lot of credit to them there. The NC State game, it only takes Vincent Council not to get 36, and they lose that game. Mm. So we're still not sure how good this team is without Darren Peterson. So the simple fact is it really helps them if Bill can guarantee that he can be back healthy. So, and if he's not, then I think they're going to be fighting for survival every night in the league, especially on the road. They have, Ari, I think over the last 30 games or so, they might be maybe 17-13 in Big 12 play. That's just a rough idea because I did the math with Tom Hart.
I think you're pretty close. Yeah, that's incredible.
Pretty close. So again, I hope he's healthy because I love watching him play. He's a great kid, and we'll see. Hopefully he plays tonight, and hopefully he gets his feet wet before Big 12 play.
Yeah, Kansas and Bill are not used to that kind of a record in conference play. We can leave it at that. But since you're talking about this, and I love your perspective on the Darren Peterson situation. So I think based on what you said, it sounds like Bill's going to give him every opportunity to play. So like there's a balancing act here between like at what point do you just shut him down because it's more difficult for the team overall to try to compensate if he does come back too late. But to your point, like we wondered how much depth this team would have before the season started. So like the idea that they're definitely a tournament team without him, you're right, is probably not exactly a given. So I mean, do you think Self is going to kind of let this play out as long as he possibly can in order to ensure that he comes back?
Yes,
versus,
he will. No, he's going to wait. The first thing is going to happen is that the people, they got great medical, Billy Cowgill, the trainer, they got great medical people at KU. The first thing is that his health long-term is not put in jeopardy by playing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Kansas fans, that would mean they would shut him down. I don't see that happening right now. I think that I don't care if Bill Self knew that he was 100% healthy on February 1st, they would play him because they would have 6 weeks to to make noise at the end of the Big 12. And again, I'm speculating, so I hope he's back tonight, right? But just in case, because injuries are part of the game. I mean, Kyrie only played like 11 games, and we thought Kyrie was going to shut it down, and then he ended up playing at the very end of the season, and then he ended up being the number one pick in the draft. Because a lot of people said, well, he's not going to play. And Cole Anthony did the same thing, by the way, at North Carolina when he was supposed to be shut down. And I think Kyrie played. I'm pretty sure Kyrie came back. But now that I think about it, it was Cole Anthony that came back
Yeah.
when I didn't think he would. But having said that, let's just hope that Darren Peterson is 100% soon so we don't have to speculate.
Yeah, well said. Always great to catch up with Fran Fraschilla, our Big 12 basketball insider. And of course, you can catch him calling all the best Big 12 games on ESPN. Fran, thanks for your time. Enjoy your East Coast trip. Go Harvard. Go Washington Wizards. Take care, brother.
Sounds good. And then we'll talk early Big 12 season, I am sure.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome.
All
Great
right,
stuff.
Ari, all the best.
You too, buddy. Take care. Merry Christmas, Fran.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah to you as
Thank
well.
you.
I know. Hope the 8 days of lights were great for you and the family.
Yeah, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate you.
Got it. See you, man.
See you,
Bye.
brother. Take care. Fran Fraschilla, the great Fran Fraschilla, joining us here on Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo here on Big 12 Radio, which you can listen to on TuneIn and stream on Big 12 Studios. All right, more reaction from what Fran just said, plus the Big 12 Hoops weekend that was a ridiculous win for Texas Tech. Was it the best non-conference win for the Big 12 season? And the Darren Peterson story, I think, was made very perhaps more interesting by what Fran just told us. We'll react to that next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. today, this Christmas week. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo, and we're super excited to be joined now by the Vice President of Big 12 Basketball, Brian Thornton, here in studio. What's going on, Brian? How are you?
Doing great, man. How about you?
Doing great. We were just talking with Fran, chopping it up about the Big 12 basketball weekend that was. You were just talking off air about being in Utah and getting to see BYU play ACU and checking out Utah's practice.
It was great. You know, had an opportunity to go out to Utah and see Utah's practice. They're doing a good job. You know, they're trying to build it from the ground up. And Alex Jensen, brand new coach, but certainly has plenty of experience being a former Utah player. It means a lot to him. And he's trying to do it the right way. You know, just spent a lot of time with them afterwards talking about, you know, just trying to get the fans involved again, trying to get it back to the glory days of when he was a player. And then shot over to BYU on Friday evening. Got an opportunity to watch them against Abilene Christian. And, you know, A.J. DeBanza was fantastic. 35 points or whatever he had, and a couple really, really, really special highlights in that game, which was fun to watch.
Yeah, Fran he said he's kind of like a smaller Kevin Garnett. Like he plays the motion. You know, everybody talks about McGrady, but he kind of gave him the Garnett comp. What do you see? And I don't know how much of a fan you are of those kind of comps.
Oh, I mean, that's high praise. You know, I certainly grew up in the Kevin Garnett era, and you know, he is a special player. You know, he does a lot of things really well. I'm not sure that he's an elite shooter or things like that, but he impacts the game in so many ways. He handles the ball. He plays the game the right way, which is fun to watch. I was telling my kids the other day about LeBron James' streak being broken of, you know, how many 2,000 straight games where he had over 10 points, like from 2006 or something like that. And, you know, he ended the streak on a great pass to the corner to Roy Hashimori for a big-time three to win a game. And, you know, AJ has some of that as well. You know, watching him make the right play time after time was enjoyable to see.
All right, so give us an idea here from a league perspective of how non-conference is different than conference play for you.
Well, for me, it's different just because, you know, I'm a fan, you know, during non-conference play. You know, it's an opportunity for me to start to understand and learn our teams. You know, as you know, in the world that we're in, our teams are turning over pretty often. Almost every year you see a lot of different faces on these teams. So
totally.
It takes some time to kind of get to know who our teams are. And so I spend a lot of that time during the non-conference. And, you know, we've kind of had a little bit of a dream start, but it's honestly a start that we expected and we hoped for when our teams built out their conference schedules or their non-conference schedules this year. And it's really panned out. You know, it's been an opportunity for us to not only schedule well, but to win a lot of those non-conference games against similar foes, you know, from the SEC or the ACC, Big Ten, et cetera, and really reestablish ourselves as kind of the preeminent conference in the country. Last year, you know, all credit to the SEC. They did a fantastic job. But, you know, we really believe that we're the second best league in America behind the NBA. And, you know, I think we've shown that so far in non-conference play.
So, okay, and you and I have talked a lot about, you know, the importance of winning these non-conference games because that sets in motion your net ranking, which then sets in motion what happens in conference play. Because once you get into conference play, you're only playing each other.
That's right.
So you can't really improve your standing. So how is the Big 12? Would you give it an A from a non-conference, setting yourselves up for success in the net?
I would say we would get an A. You know, when you look at what some of our teams have done, you know, again, not only have we done a much better job of scheduling the volume of those games, but we've had a great level of success. You know, we have the highest win percentage against any of the other A4s. We have the most wins against that same cohort. So we've done a really, really good job from that standpoint. You know, we've talked a lot about our conference schedule and how those things kind of intersect. You know, we went from 20 games to 18 games. And one of the things that we talked about with our coaches last year during the spring is if we're going to take away 2 conference games, we have to do a great job of adding quality non-conference games to balance that out.
Yeah.
And our coaches went out and they bought into that. They scheduled properly. But most importantly, you have to win those games. You can't just schedule them.
Yeah, great point. I mean, the Texas Tech win over Duke at Madison Square Garden was electric. Houston beating Arkansas, great game this weekend. There's some losses, but I mean, you're going to take some of those. I mean, you're not going to go flawless through the non-conference. All right, and then, you know, in terms of like what's different for you from a non-conference versus a conference perspective, like you see Big 12 officials in non-conference games. So tell me how that works. Are you evaluating them, what they're doing in these non-conference games? Are you the one scheduling them out? And then how do you think the coach's challenge piece has worked so far?
Well, John Higgins, who is our coordinator of officials, him and I talk seemingly every day, pretty much during the non-conference season, but definitely during conference play. Making sure that we have the right guys on the games. We're obviously evaluating our officials to make sure that those guys are doing what they're supposed to do. I think we have some of the very, very best officials in the country, and I start to get more calls from coaches the further the year goes along.
Sure.
Because the games get bigger, the lights get brighter, the pressure becomes greater.
Every play magnified more so.
Every play magnified more. And when I move into conference play, it's not the same as just being a fan. Because it's a zero-sum game, right? There's a winner and a loser, and that both affects our league. So, we just try to, communicate with those coaches as much as possible. I'll make sure that, they feel comfortable with the guys that they have on the game. One thing I always ask them, when they do call to complain about a call or whatever the case may be is, who else would you rather have on the game? And certainly understand that not every play is perfect. Just like every call that they play is not perfect. But I think by and large our officials do a good job, and I think our coaches respect them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thankless position from an officiating perspective because you could probably call something on every play. There needs to be a flow of the game. Is this, by the way, is this the same facility, The Rock, for the basketball replay system, or is that a totally different system?
Well, that's something that we're really considering, the best way to do basketball replay. Obviously we're going to continue to work with football because football, their replay system is a little bit further along. We currently don't use a replay system, externally in the same way football does. Our replay is done in-house or in venue with the officials on the floor, but it's something that we're considering. Do we utilize kind of a comprehensive replay program that allows us to utilize an external setup to help us do a better job?
And is it maybe faster, better, more effective? I mean, what do you think maybe the positives of doing something like that, or do you think it's like the speed for which these calls are being made, in terms of replay, is that adequate?
Well, I think collaborative replay has a place. You certainly see it in the NBA. They do it. And, if you can do it the right way, then it probably makes some sense. But, we do think our officials are doing a good job. I think to your point, coaches' challenges have, probably sped up the game a little bit. The game's a little bit more smoother, more about the flow than actual game time. There's not as many times that the officials are running to the monitor to look at things. And, when we made the decision to go to a coaches' challenge, we had to accept the fact that officials aren't perfect.
Right.
And we're going to miss some calls.
Right.
Or they're going to miss some calls. And they're going to miss some calls at times that matter when coaches don't have challenges and whatnot. So, it's a game of mistakes, and everybody makes them.
Right.
And our officials are going to do the very best they can.
Brian Thornton, VP of Basketball for the Big 12. Always fun to catch up with you, and looking forward to doing it hopefully weekly once we get into conference play.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Brian Thornton joining us here on Big 12 Radio on site here at Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. All right, Pete Nakos, college football insider, joins us next. This is Big 12 Radio.
Extra.
Awesome, dude. Is there a good time? Like, Anthony Smith is producing back at our Big 12 studio in Charlotte. Great to have you with us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12 Conference. Tune in and Big 12 Studios. Of course, make sure to download the TuneIn app if you have not yet already and favorite the Big 12 channel. That way it shows up each and every time you open up the app. And also check out Big12Studios.com to find all the places that you can get Big 12 Studios, including Tubi, Roku, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, and many other places as well. All right. I am Ari Tepkin on social at Ari Sports. Great to have you with us here on your home for the Big 12. We've got the Orange Bowl to get you ready for with Texas Tech and Oregon. Plus, the bowl season for the Big 12 is upon us. It starts on Saturday with the Pop-Tarts Bowl between Georgia Tech and BYU. And then heading into next week with USC, TCU, Arizona State, Duke, Nebraska, Utah, Oregon, Texas Tech, Navy, Cincinnati, Arizona, SMU. All right, Pete Nakos from On3 Sports, the college football insider, joining us now here on Big 12 Radio. Pete, how are you?
What's up, guys? How are you, man?
Doing very well. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Who's going to be the next coach of Michigan?
Could not tell you that at this moment.
Okay, so it's such an odd situation from a cycle perspective. It feels a lot like when Nick Saban stepped out of Bama. But, I mean, do you think that it's currently a sitting head coach? Do you think that's what they're targeting?
I don't think they have a target, so I'm trying to speculate on that.
Sure.
I can't do that, but this is what I can tell you. I can tell you that it really felt like they were in I said a holding pattern. I don't know, on hindsight if I would call it, but they really wanted to see what happened Friday night with Kalen DeBoer in Alabama and Oklahoma, right? And even though Kalen DeBoer had come out and made a statement and made it very clear he's going to be in Tuscaloosa in 2026, that doesn't stop a top 5 program from doing everything they can to make sure that they can get a guy that they really want.
Right.
So that was last week, and then Kenny Dillingham signed a contract extension right after that Alabama game that Saturday morning. And now it's December 22nd. The portal opens in 10 days, if I'm doing my math correctly. And I think that we're not in a reset, but there's definitely a lot more questions than answers at this point.
What do you think, about Kyle Whittingham? Obviously with the situation at Utah, I mean, he's still a really good coach. Do you think that he's going to be sought after, maybe not by a Michigan, but, to be a sitting head coach, or do you think it might take another cycle?
Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that when I wrote my insider article this weekend, I made sure to mention Kyle Whittingham because, of all the available coaches on the market right now, he is, definitely someone who has probably some of the most coaching experience. He's available.
Right.
At the same time, too, now I'm speculating here. He accomplished so much at Utah, right? Like they might build a statue of him or like name the stadium after him.
Right, totally.
You do start to wonder, like, is that really, just taking the Michigan job, if he were offered it, and I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying he's available, does that, somehow change what his legacy is viewed at Utah? And, I don't know all the ins and outs of why Kyle Whittingham decided to, step away at this point. I don't. But, I on the surface level, I kind of find it hard that he would leave Utah after putting in all that work and then just go and taking a Michigan job. At the same time, though, Michigan is Michigan, and that's one thing that we can't shortchange through all of this is that it's a top 5 program with top resources in the sport in one of the, in the Big Ten, with a clear pathway to the playoff. Like things like that are very, attractive.
It's great to be talking with Pete Nakos from On3 Sports, giving us his insight and perspective across college football. And one of the things you reported over the weekend was Jordan Peterson hired as the defensive coordinator for K-State as Colin Klein officially takes over in the wake of A&M losing their first-round matchup. What can you tell us about the staff that Colin Klein is putting together right now?
Yeah, Colin Klein is building a staff of people he knows, but also, he's really dipping the SEC with Jordan Peterson. He's also bringing the Texas A&M tight ends coach quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure. I think the one thing I've been really impressed about by Colin Klein is he is not really like leaving like a stone unturned when it comes to trying to like build a really elite staff in Manhattan. And there was actually some Texas A&M did everything they could to hold on to Jordan Peterson. They made a like late offer on Saturday after that Miami game to keep him. But yeah, I mean Colin Klein got it done, and it's the other interesting thing here too is I really think that Colin Klein has the pieces to win right away at Kansas State.
Something you reported on over the weekend as well was the status of Skylar Gill Howard, who's obviously has been an extremely important piece for Texas Tech, but has missed a bunch of time. You mentioned he had underwent ankle surgery in October. Is there a shot for him to play in the Orange Bowl? And is that something that could disrupt what they've been doing defensively because they've been without him for so long?
Yeah, so playing in the Orange Bowl is out that's not going to happen from everything I've been told. But if they advance, they get past Oregon and they can play in the semifinals. Like there's legitimate optimism that he could be back on the field.
Wow. And what capacity does that look like? Is that part time? Is it? I mean, are they? I guess would every program handle that differently in terms of, could he play part time? Is he playing full time? What are the ways in which?
I don't know the full scope of what that would look like. I just know that there's confidence that he could be available for the national semifinal. And more than anything, Texas Tech is built differently than a lot of schools. I think defensive line is case in point there. I think anytime that you can roll in a starting caliber defensive lineman in a situation like that, that'd be a plus. So even if it's 10 snaps or whatnot, but just being able to, have a substitution that's, a high-end starter quality, like I think that would go a long way. So I don't know what it would all look like, but I just know that Texas Tech, there is some optimism that he can get back in this college football playoff.
Pete, what do you make of the situation with the transfer portal right now, with all the coaches complaining about the dates of it, and yet it almost doesn't matter the dates of it because guys are going to make decisions when they make decisions, and then it's going to be reported on. Like, I guess, what do you make of that setup where the portal hasn't opened yet, and yet we know basically who's already in it?
Well, I'll tell you two things. One thing, yes, that is accurate, but at the same time, it feels like there's a lot of guys bubbling up underneath the surface that have not yet either made their decisions known to their schools or have announced it. And I think January 2nd is still going to have some headliners that we didn't see coming. The second thing I'll tell you is that this is not a complaint because I love my job and I love the madness that college football is, but the calendar definitely needs to be.
Yeah.
I think when the NCAA sat down this summer and really tried to think about the transfer portal, I think there was some good-natured thought into moving into January because then almost everyone could play in the bowl game unless they're opting out for the draft. But that really hasn't stopped players from opting out and announcing they're going into the portal. So I don't know. And, we don't need to get into a whole macro-level discussion on the state of the sport. But the other reality of it is the transfer portal has to be this time of year or late in the spring because of the academic calendar. Because at the end of the day, college football is still,
college,
in the collegiate system.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, and I agree with you on the adjusted calendar. I mean, and it's not just the transfer portal; it's the coaching decisions too. It's just very bizarre, where you've got these huge games, and yet Ole Miss doesn't have their head coach. We know that Tulane's coach is halfway out the door. I mean, Texas A&M's offensive coordinator, both Oregon's offensive and defensive coordinators. I mean, there's more coaches involved in the playoff that are on to the next job or at least on their way to the next job than there are, seemingly coaches that are staying. So what do you think is best case scenario for the calendar? What makes the most sense as somebody that's in the news breaking industry?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know if I'm the guy with all the right answers here. I'll just tell you that, until we get to collective bargaining or probably a very much more formal system, I don't know if any of the calendar changes that everyone's pounding the table for are going to happen. Because we're in a system right now where nothing is stopping an athlete from announcing on October 20th they're going to the transfer portal. And we're in at the end of the day, too, guys, I don't want to like get on my high horse here, but just like a coach, just like an athlete, like both those, coaches and athletes both have their rights to maximize their market value. So
100%.
that is one thing I'm never gonna like speak ill of, and I know some people do.
No, I mean, I completely agree. In fact, it's probably one of the greatest changes of college football is allowing players to do that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the players, and that's where, like, it's hard to get mad at Sam Levitt because in some ways you're doing a disservice to the rest of the market. Sort of like we've talked about this from a homeownership perspective. If you live in a block and you sell your house for well below market value, you're doing a disservice to your neighbors. And as much as people don't want to hear it, it's the same with the quarterback market. Like if you are not helping to set the QB market, you're doing a disservice to the rest of the quarterbacks that are looking for that market to be established.
Yep. No, exactly. Exactly.
All right, Pete, what's the latest? What's the next thing you're working on?
Uh, I got a quarterback who hit me up who's going in the transfer portal, so we're working on that this morning.
Is that Rocco Becht? We already knew that
Rocco already announced he's going in, so no, we got another back, not a non-Big 12 quarterback.
Got
I'll
it.
say that. Yeah,
Well, there's a lot,
and then I mean, not to bore you with all the coaching carousel details here, but Michigan needs a head coach. Georgia Tech and North Carolina need offensive coordinators. And I'm sure there's like three other things I'm forgetting, but those are the big things I'm tracking at the moment.
Pete, always appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping out with us, man. You're the best. Be well, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you.
Talk to you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Pete Nakos joining us here from On3, giving us his insights into both the stories that he's breaking and then the stories he's covering and on top of. And, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good, interesting perspective for somebody that's behind the scenes getting all this information. What is the calendar going to look like? What should it look like? And I think, he just laid it out. Like, until we get collective bargaining, the schedule's going to make no sense. And sort of everything that's going on is going to make no sense. And like we can only just continue to make this point as often as we possibly can, and we will. But like all of the problems that people keep talking about when it comes to college athletics could be solved by collective bargaining. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't bring a whole new set of problems, but I think we're more on track to finalizing the issues that plague this sport that people keep bringing up. Whether it's coaches or administrators or fans or whatever, like collective bargaining would help go a long way in solving many of the issues that people believe are in college sports right now. The part of that, though, that you struggle with is, it does create more problems, but they're different problems and problems that I think are easier to solve. Because the easy fix for all of the issues that people talk about right now is collective bargaining. That's it. How do you have contracts you can hold players to? How do you have more uniformity in the portal? Like all of these things, collectively bargaining would fix it. Now, again, it brings up a whole set of issues in terms of, okay, how do you collectively bargain? How do you organize? What do you do in terms of employment? Like, again, I get that there's going to be issues associated with it, but to me, those issues are a far cry from the issues we're dealing with now, especially from, where we are from a national discourse perspective. All right, always great to visit with Pete Nakos on social at Pete Nakos. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. On the way next, let's get a little insight into the analytical side of the playoff and just how big a losses were these Group of Five losses with James Madison and Tulane. Cam Mellor from the PFSN 365, Chief Analytics Officer, joins us next. Really interesting insight into this playoff. That's next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 Radio, this is Big 12 Today, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. We are presented by Modelo on this Christmas week. Cam Mellor, Chief Analytics Officer for PFSN 365, is joining us here on Big 12 Radio. It's always great to get an interesting look at the numbers and evaluations. And how are you, Cam? Good morning.
I'm great. Happy holidays. It's always fun to unveil sort of the under the curtain, under the hood, so to speak, of what makes these football teams tick. But it's bowl season, playoff season. It is the holidays.
Yeah, it's great. A great time for football. And this was an incredible football weekend. Curious for your kind of overall thoughts on, the prevailing narrative and conversation around college football media today, which is, centered on the group of five and the Tulane blowout, James Madison getting blown out. I know they made it look a little bit better in the second half against Oregon's third and fourth team defense, but just kind of give us kind of your overall thoughts on the inclusion of the group of five and should this continue?
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence in that regard. I'm not a JMU grad, but my entire wife and her entire family is, and I was happy to see JMU. This was before they were JMU. They were JMU, but let's face it, Bridgeport Stadium had about 15,000 people at the stadium capacity when they went there. So it's been a long journey, and I think it speaks volumes to what JMU's been able to build up. But do they really belong in the college football playoff as one of two group of five teams? I really don't think so. I think, if anything, the simple solution is to cap it at one of these teams, making it, and our numbers all indicated that JMU was a better team than Tulane was at this point going into the playoffs, and I think they looked like the better team, but it's hard to look and watch those games and not think that Notre Dame and BYU would have been better, two better opponents for Ole Miss and Oregon. So to me, I think the solution needs to be fixed. I don't know really what the best way to do it is. Include them as maybe the top ranked group of five champion. I don't know yet. To me, I'm on the fence a little bit. I like seeing a little guy. They earned their right to be there, but I don't think two of them should have made it.
Yeah, I mean you're right, and I think if it comes down to like the purpose of the playoff is to make more games more important, then that's been served. That makes sense. But if it's to have competitive games, then it certainly doesn't make sense to do it that way. Let me ask you this way, because you've been releasing all of the deep analytics across every college conference, and more specifically into the group of five right now, in terms of ranking position groups across all leagues. So, like, what percentage of these group of five conferences that you're rating, what percentage of these guys at the top are going to be at the group of five next year?
I would say very slim to none. And I think, the way that we structured the playoffs was probably great before NIL and the portal era really kicked into what we are now. I think if you look, if you look at it, the Darian Mensahs at Tulane, they're getting $8 million to go to Duke. They're getting these lucrative contracts to leave, and I think probably the number, I would love to do a study come July once we've actually got official rosters next summer and say, these were the 10 highest rated players at each position in the group of five conferences, and then see where they all are now, because I'd put that number probably upwards of 75, 85% of these players are going to go elsewhere. I mean, I do numbers for the FCS too, and I was just looking at the Northeast Conference cornerbacks, and our top 10 graded cornerbacks from the Northeast Conference, they're all in the portal already or have announced their intentions to be in the portal. So it's gone now down to not to group of five, but it's down to the FCS level where these guys know I can find a better place to play or find more money to go play elsewhere.
Yeah, I think, again, that's an important conversation in this conversation around, should the group of five be playing? Because it's not just the players, by the way. It's the coaches, too, right? I mean, James Madison's coach is leaving. Tulane's coach is leaving. North Texas was in the conversation till the end of the year. Their coach is leaving. So it's not just the players, it's the coaches, too. And, again, I don't know if it's, look at how impressive these teams are, that they're winning despite losing their best players and coaches every year, or if it's more ammo for why they shouldn't be included.
I think it's the latter. I think it's impressive. You watch and say, hey, Bob Chesney took Kurt Signetti's team, and after Signetti cleaned house at JMU, he was able to bring his guys from Holy Cross over, and they did what they did in 2 years and turned around. And I mean, credit to them for getting the right to be there. And same with Tulane. John Summerall, 2 years was there before he's going to take a P4 job. I think credit to those programs for building what they built themselves into. But if you really boil it down and get down to brass tacks, they're the best group of five, or they're the best team in their conference at the group of five, which is probably a middling team in even the ACC at this point in time. And so to me, yes, they earn the right to be there in the current system, but I think that's really where it is. You can't fault JMU and their players and Tulane and their players and staff for being there. They did what they needed to do to be there, but I think the system is at fault on the surface, as a whole.
Yeah, well said. Cam Meller joining us here from PFSN 365 and PFSN College, Chief Analytics Officer. Okay, so just give us kind of the big picture view of these bowl games now in the quarterfinals, including the Orange Bowl with Texas Tech and Oregon. What are some of the analytics that stand out in that? And then I want to dig deeper into some of the numbers you've uncovered and some of the other bowl games for the Big 12.
Yeah, I think so. If you watched, if we were talking Oregon, we're talking JMU. What did Oregon do in their scripted offense? Those first 4 drives, they looked incredibly proficient on offense, obviously, and defense was sharp. They probably need to be a little bit sharper, but it's the Texas Tech defense that stands out. I think it's probably the best in the country that maybe went overlooked from the Power 4 schools. We all know David Bailey, Lee Hunter, and Romello Height are as scary of a defensive front as possible. But to me, it's Bryce Pollock and the cornerbacks that actually I think can run with Malik Benson. And if they get Decory Moore back, Oregon can. Then I think that's an issue maybe that Texas Tech can overcome, but you have to have Dante Moore's best game. So to me, it's Texas Tech defense, and if Texas Tech can play a little bit of maybe error-free football on offense, their defense is good enough to shut them down. And I think that's the team that's scary to me the most, besides Indiana, which I think would probably be shocking. I think they're probably the most complete team, or at least that's what the numbers indicate. It's Indiana's to lose at this point just because of how complete they are.
Wow. Okay, you were mentioning before we got on air about the Pop-Tarts Bowl and what stands out when with BYU and Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's we all watched LJ Martin run wild when he was healthy and when he could, and they ran him to the ground. And if he can stay upright, he does it better than anybody in the country this year. But to me, I found in the trenches is where this game should be won. And if it's obviously it's incredibly hard to actually look at the analysis for bowl games nowadays with how many players sit out. And so if they're at full strength, or even if they're close to full strength on the defensive front for Georgia Tech, they should be no match for BYU's offensive line. They were averaging over 1.2 yards before contact on LJ's carries. And so if you have LJ Martin doing what he can do with yards after contact, and then they're getting that jump, Georgia Tech's defensive front averaged as well 2.5 yards, just their defensive front, their defensive 4, 2.5 yards for every run tackle they were making per game. So there's a big discrepancy in how much they were getting knocked off the ball. It was on the lower end on the ACC. So BYU's offensive line and LJ Martin to run wild on this Georgia Tech front.
Let me ask you something. I'm not sure if you have this information readily available, but certainly, like anecdotally, it feels like the Big 12 up front is better now than it's ever been, just on the whole, in terms of having the dudes on the offensive and defensive lines. Does that analytically stand up?
Yes. So I have a few of them, and I can look at it and you say here. I put out offensive line grades and I put out defensive line grades, and people were incredibly upset that Texas Tech was higher than Oklahoma and then higher than Texas. The state of Texas and the northern area, north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, hated the fact that Texas Tech was better than both Oklahoma and Texas, and they said, who do they play? And Texas Tech dominated Utah up front, and that's 2 first-round tackles. And so I think that's the antithesis of it. If you expand a little bit more, there may not be the full draft-eligible talent that the SEC might have in terms of the 2026 NFL draft, but I think overall, if you look at it, Oregon was our top-rated offensive line, and then in the top 15, there is Utah, Arizona State, Iowa State, and Baylor, and that's more than any other conference that has in the top 15 overall offensive line rankings. And so, I don't have the numbers for both, but that's an interesting one to put out there. But yes, both on offense and defensive line, the Big 12 had more in the top 10, top 15 overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to me what separates this Texas Tech team maybe from some of the playoff teams out of the Big 12 in the past, and even Arizona State last year. But if Texas and OU are mad about Texas Tech having guys ranked higher than then maybe they should have done more to solidify their roster. But to me, that's a big reason why I think this is maybe people are missing on Texas Tech a little bit. They don't really understand how good they are up front.
Everybody wanted to talk about Jacob Rodriguez, right? And rightfully so. But he didn't have to make as many plays as he's had to previously in his career because of how talented that front is. Yeah. And the leaders in the country in pressures are the Red Raiders, but the leader in quick pressures, which are pressures that are within 2.5 seconds of the snap, which completely disrupts any passing attack across the country, it's Texas Tech, but it's David Bailey leads more than about half the entire teams in quick pressures. So Bailey's the guy to watch, but overall that front is the best we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a top 10 pick. I think Mello Heights probably a first, second round pick. I think, Lee Hunter is going to be a high pick. So when you've got that many offensive or NFL players in your defensive line, you're in good shape. And when I look at this Oregon matchup, Cam, I mean, like what Oregon did to JMU's defense, I just don't know that they're going to be able to do that to Tech's defense. And I mean, I'll say it. They're not. Like 5 straight touchdown drives, 5 plays or less. JMU statistically, analytically, was one of the best defenses in college football, but that's against, their opponents. Texas Tech is on that level against, like opponents like Oregon.
It's incredible. And every time I even tried to opponent adjust our numbers and JMU kept coming up. So I knew that they were good, but if you look at the size that they have, it's not the size that Texas Tech has. And so to me, yeah, it's Pregnon and Isaiah World on the left side. I'm very interested to see how the Texas Tech staff schemes to get the rushers to the right side. I think the right side is going to be a little bit easier for them to get pressure on, but Isaiah World from his time at Nevada had some discrepancies in pass protection. He's had some trouble this year as well. It's been the quick passing game that Oregon has feasted on, and letting Dante Moore get the ball out pretty quickly. And so I think this is the defensive front that can mitigate what they do offensively. So it's David Bailey to me is Brian Arakpo. I've seen a lot of this, and that's probably the best comparison I've seen so far to me in terms of NFL draft comps. So it's an intriguing battle to watch him just whenever he plays.
I mean, do you think Texas Tech wins this game? How far do you think Texas Tech will go?
If they win this game, I think this probably, besides maybe Indiana, Indiana or Ohio State, I'm intrigued to see where that goes. But no, Texas Tech to me is, besides Indiana, is my favorite. And I honestly, my numbers look at it to where we have 8 teams left, and so it's only about a 29% chance to win. To Indiana's 31%, but then the next closest isn't the teams. So those two are my 2 favorites to win, with Texas Tech getting a huge leg up if they beat Oregon.
That's so interesting, Cam, because the blue chip ratio, if it's the top 4 seeds in the semis, you get Ohio State and Georgia, who are 2 of the top blue chip ratio teams, and then Indiana and Texas Tech, who are not blue chip ratio teams. And it seems like your metrics like one of those 2 to win the national title, which would be the first time ever. So, I mean, how much do you think that's sort of an intriguing aspect, subplot to this?
To me, I mean, it's as interesting as Indiana is to not become a basketball or become something other than a basketball school. To me, the wave of the future is how Joey McGuire has built that Texas Tech roster, and we're seeing other teams needing these $20 million checks, as Kenny Dillingham has said, and these other programs knowing Lane Kiffin when he negotiates how much money he wants for NIL. McGuire set the precedent with this roster, and I think blue chip talent's going to be one thing. Recruiting is going to be maybe a different area, a different aspect over the next few years. And those coaches that can recruit top-notch talent, develop, and then also spend money well in the portal, that's going to be the new age thing. And I don't think anybody's done it better than Joey McGuire. And so to me, that's the biggest story if Texas Tech's able to pull this off. Yeah,
well said. Any other notes that stand out to you from other Big 12 bowl games, beyond the playoff? You've got the Texas Bowl with LSU and Houston. You've got the Alabama Bowl with USC and TCU. You've got the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl with Arizona State and Duke, Nebraska and Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl, Navy and Cincinnati in the Liberty Bowl, and then the Holiday Bowl, Arizona and SMU. Any other interesting notes about those games?
I have notes on all of them. It's just a matter of who's going to actually play in these as well. Yeah. So I want to see what Willie Fritz and Houston's able to do against LSU. And that's probably one of the better secondaries in the entire country, if not the best secondary in the country overall, if they all play. But then to me, Cincinnati, their offensive line and their defensive front were actually, granted, in fairness to them, they're stacked up against the Big 12 competition, so they were the lowest each in the conference this year. And so can Navy actually, that's one of those where I think I like the group of 5 Navy team to sort of command and control. But it is interesting what Cincinnati will trot out on that field this year, or this for the bowl game specifically, without Sorsby as well. So a lot of notes from across all of them, but to me, it's watching who they field and what they look like, Utah's offensive front as well, and sort of the swan song. So not a lot. It'll be very interesting to watch who they trot out there. But yeah, Navy over Cincinnati, and then if Houston can field a full roster.
Great stuff. As always, Cam Mellor, always fun to check in with Cam, the Chief Analytics Officer for the Pro Football Sports Network, and, of course, College Sports Network as well. Appreciate your time, Cam. Thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks as always for having me. Happy holidays.
You too, bud. Thank you. Cam Mellor joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Austin Ivan joins us next in studio. Can't wait to visit with Austin. This is Big 12 Today, Christmas week on Big 12 Studios and on TuneIn. Big 12 Radio. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Austin Ivan, our friend, joining us here in studio. What's going on, Austin? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. You in the Christmas spirit?
I am.
Excellent.
Going home later today.
Nice.
So I'm excited. I still have some Christmas shopping to do, though, if I'm going to be honest. Last minute Christmas shopping. That is me.
What's your go-to last minute Christmas shopping?
Just go to the mall and go in
Okay.
every store and just try to find something.
How, I've just always operated the impression that, I'm not going to any stores right now.
Well, I thought about it yesterday, and then I realized it's a Sunday, and that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe a Monday will be a little bit better, but
Maybe.
it's still the week of Christmas, so it's going to be crowded.
I'm just always curious, is it as bad as I think it is in my head?
I couldn't even get into the parking lot, so I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Just avoid
Yep.
all stores.
Yep.
Nope. And then the thing that sucks too is, then there's a grace period after because you've got to wait out the returns.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's just, I should have been better prepared.
It's all right. I'm sure your
So
parents.
you're done with your Christmas shopping?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Good for you.
yeah.
Good for you. They're all wrapped. Everything's.
Oh yeah, everything's good to go.
I'm impressed.
And by that I mean my wife did that.
Yeah.
And it was really easy for me.
Yeah, I'm sure you. Yeah,
Occasionally I'd wrap something too.
you just put the bow on top.
The bow. I'm actually not bad at wrapping gifts. I like it, but I also it's the tissue paper in the bags. That's always a fun one too.
Yeah, I know. I love it. My mom usually waits for me to get home to wrap everything because she knows I enjoy that, and I'll have a theme and have different wrapping paper that all goes together and everything. But yeah, she probably had to start without me because I'm only showing up 2 days before Christmas.
You usually go earlier.
Well, usually we're ahead and we have some stuff by Thanksgiving. And so when I go home for Thanksgiving, we'll get the tree and then we'll start wrapping a few things to start to put under the tree. But yeah, I didn't do that when I was home for Thanksgiving. So hopefully she's already wrapped some presents.
How many, do you have a lot, do you have nieces and nephews and stuff you have to buy stuff for? Or?
I have, I have a niece and nephew that live in Oklahoma City, my brother, my parents, and both sets of grandparents.
Awesome.
So
Wow. So a lot of shopping.
a lot of shopping.
All right, Austin, let's talk about what you've been doing because you've been really plugged into high school football.
Yes.
You did the state playoffs and then the the All-America Bowl.
Yep.
So let's start with the playoffs. For those of us that are knee deep in college and NFL, because my NFL team's amazing. Where are we in the state playoffs right now?
It's over.
It's over. Okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought.
So, I was doing a football game every single week starting week 1 at the end of August.
Wow.
And Texas season goes longer than I feel like most other states to have their state championship games end on the 20th, 5 days before Christmas. A lot of other states end a couple weeks before that. It was at AT&T Stadium starting on Wednesday, 3 games a day for 4 days, 12 state champions. So we are officially done.
What was what games blew you away? What were the best games?
So I would say the biggest storyline was that there was 3 Dallas teams that made it to state in the 3 biggest classifications: Duncanville, DeSoto, and South Oak Cliff. And all of them have been dominant in the past few years. And so it's really no surprise that they were back again. But that was kind of the biggest storyline was it going to be the Dallas teams or was it going to be the Houston teams? Because they were all playing kind of Houston teams on who would win those 3 biggest matchups.
So how did it go?
So South Oak Cliff won. They have made it to state 5 straight years and won 3 titles.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, they won the first one and had not won a state championship
Yes.
either ever or in 100 years.
Right. Yeah, they've had a reemergence of this program and everything. Coach Todd there has done an incredible job. 10 years ago, they had a walkout. Their quarterback, their whole school, they were wanting new facilities. It was just a really bad situation they were in. So, it's been incredible what he has done. He calls it the greatest Texas high school football story. And it could be.
It started with Kevin Jennings, right? The SMU quarterback?
Right.
It really is. It's hard for a program that is not established in the state to become a dominant force.
Especially they didn't have the resources. They just don't have a lot of things these other schools around the state do. And so what he has been able to do has been incredible. So really excited for them that they won their 3rd state title.
Crazy.
DeSoto dominated in their game. They we knew it was going to be high scoring, but they had 48 points at half. So they have some stud players. They won. And then the other game was Duncanville and North Shore. And North Shore won. And that was, those two teams had played 6 times in the last 9 years in state. That is crazy that, like, you can continue to have that much dominance for a program.
Well, it feels like those are maybe the 2 best programs in the state.
Yeah, you could definitely argue that. But just the consistency, I mean, you lose one game. You have, someone gets hurt. One thing doesn't go your way.
Right.
But for them to continually make it back 6 times in the last 10 years for those 2 teams to play is pretty incredible.
Who are some of the, if you can remember, some of the most notable players from those teams? All quarterbacks?
Really not. So Caleb Maryland, he's going to Utah. He's a quarterback. There was
From Duncanville?
from, oh my gosh, I have all my state championship notes.
Sorry.
Let's see. So for Duncanville and North Shore, Duncanville's quarterback, Jacorian Rivers, he's a senior. He was the backup to start the year. Didn't even play until the last week of the regular season. They had personal issues with the starting quarterback. He had to step away from the team, and they bring in the backup quarterback.
And still make it to the state title game.
Yes, so that was incredible. Trenton Yancey is their great wide receiver. Asen Theus, he is going to TCU, and he is insanely fast, and he makes plays all over the field. He was on the high school 4x2 team that set a national record.
Oh, wow.
So he was probably the fastest guy at AT&T Stadium in the last 4 days. Really impressive. And so he's going to TCU. And then...
Including the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, he's that
Just
fast.
had to do that,
Yeah,
Ari.
yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I had to think in my head. I was like, oh, yeah, they played at home this week.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. So, yeah, there was... Caleb Maryland is for North Shore that played against Duncanville, and he's the one that's going to, I think, Utah. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Then you also did the U.S. Army All-America Bowl
Yep.
in Frisco.
Yes.
You were doused in ranch.
I was. Yep. It was sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings, and the post-game MVP, I had an idea they were going to do something, so I was a little bit prepared, but I thought it was going to be after the interview. I was going to step away.
When you had been cleared out of the way.
Right. They were going to be standing on the, like, they had tarp set out so it wouldn't get on the field. So I thought I would have a second to move out. And immediately when I started talking to the MVP, Cam Newton, he's from Prosper Walnut Grove, right up the road. And he, got drenched with ranch, and it definitely got on me too, I will say. So that outfit is going to the dry cleaners to see if we can recover that.
Yeah, it's probably not an easy thing to get out of clothes.
And it just, like, I was going to a birthday dinner right after that.
Oh, no.
It was just like,
How
do I
bad
leave it
did
in
you
my
smell?
car? I changed.
Okay.
I had to change.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's going to now make my car smell like ranch. And it was just a whole mess.
Do you like ranch?
I do, but
When you get wings, do you go ranch or blue cheese?
I'll do both, either one.
Okay.
Like, I like both.
Blue cheese would have been a more horrific smell.
Yes, and I will say I'm not a ketchup person, so I'm like, at least it wasn't ketchup. I don't know, but that's my least favorite condiment, honestly. So
Okay, ketchup's amazing.
I know.
But I think if I were to choose, I think ranch is the best.
It was a thin ranch, I will say. Like, it wasn't like
watery.
It wasn't super thick. Yeah, maybe a little watered down. Because people were like, "Was that milk that got dumped on you?" And I was like, "No, it was ranch." Yeah.
So basically, it's the U.S. Army All-America Bowl is sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings.
This year it was, yes.
So that's why.
Yeah, so
that's why they had a Gatorade bath of ranch.
Couldn't we do like the hot wing challenge or something for the MVP? Like, why did we have to dump?
Would you have done that?
I wouldn't have done that, but I would. I mean, yeah.
Do you like
I do.
wings?
And they
Hot
did
wings?
that the night before with the offensive linemen for both teams.
That's funny.
Yeah, Team Black won. They ate. I think they figured out 57 wings in 3 minutes. Yeah.
Like bone in?
Bone in. Yep.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yep.
All like flats or wings or?
No, they had both, and they were telling me their strategy. They went with the flats first, and then they started to use the dipping sauce if they wanted. They were using buffalo sauce and ranch because they were just dry wings. So yeah, they had their strategy and everything ready to go.
Wow, 57 wings in 3 minutes. That's impressive.
Between 5 guys, yep.
I bet if they were like super spicy hot though, there's no way they could have done that.
Yeah. So one of the guys was from London, like the NFL Academy in London, and he had never had Buffalo Wild Wings before, and then he was a part of this competition, and he was like, I'd never even tasted a chicken wing before.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, yep.
Here's 57 chicken wings in 3 minutes.
Yep, exactly. He's like, I'm going to get some before I go back home, though. So he liked it.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo Wild Wings is fine, but you could probably like there's some good buffalo wings across the great country. Everybody has a strategy though. I have a strategy. I've got to only eat with one hand. Got to keep one hand free and clean.
Yeah.
So it's got to you got to and the flats are harder to eat with one hand. You got to really get in there. That's what I've learned is like really get in there. But the one hand is really appropriate because then it doesn't then you got a free hand. Otherwise everything's messy.
I know. And then it's like, yeah, how often do you wipe the hand off to go back to the French fries or the drink or whatever? So yeah, I get it.
So that you don't need to wipe it off if you're just going one-handed. Then now you got the drink, the French fries, the phone.
You just keep this hand like
a little left hand is ready to go.
Sticky, okay.
Right hand, no sticky. It's like tied behind my back.
Okay.
It's key.
Okay.
You gotta match the one-handed eat. One-handed eat. All right, what else?
I don't know. I mean,
a lot of high school football.
Ton of football. Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy week of football. I feel like I'm losing my voice a little bit because I was talking so much football, but football is officially done now, so I feel like I'm full basketball mode. Still covering the Dallas Mavericks every week, and then a lot of college basketball as well. So trying to get back into the basketball mode.
And so, for people that don't know, you did Houston men's basketball.
I did.
Sideline.
Yep.
During the non-conference.
Yep, for a handful of their games.
Then you do Houston women's as well.
Yes.
So let's have a discussion here about Houston men's basketball. This team so far hasn't yet scratched the surface of how good they could be, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's how Coach Sampson wants it.
Yeah.
Like he would prefer to be the underdog for most of the season. He would prefer for them to not be playing their best basketball. He said that he has different checkpoints throughout the season, and he doesn't even really think about how good the team is until these 3 checkpoints. The first one is Christmas. So this week he's going to kind of have that first check-in. The next one is Valentine's Day, and then the final one is St. Patrick's Day. So those are kind of the 3 times that he goes in and assesses the team. But besides that, I mean, he is just completely focused on in the moment, the next game, the next opponent, and how do they get their team better.
Expand on that in terms of like the check-ins, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. He said he doesn't, talk about it a lot or tell people about it a lot, but he just said that he doesn't like to think long-term, big picture. And, people will ask him, what'd you learn about your team? Or do you think this team is as good as last year's team or could be as good as last year's team? And he just doesn't he doesn't really ever have an answer. He's like, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to compare these teams. And so he really is just so good at being locked in the moment. But it's more impressive how he gets his players to be locked in, because a lot of these players, they made it to the national championship last game. They're thinking about getting back there, or how do they get back there? Can they get back there? And he has them all bought in where, I mean, they understand it's a long season, and so you just have to be present. So, yeah, we'll see what he says after Christmas break. I have their game on the 29th, so that will be, I guess, their first game after that first check-in to see what he thinks. But, yeah, he said that maybe they're a little bit more of an offensive team in past years, which is a crazy thing for Coach Sampson to say because he is just so defensive-minded, but they put up 90-something points on Arkansas a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So,
94.
94. So definitely more offense than we've seen in the past few years with this team, but that's just a credit to the talent. He has a really incredible roster with some great players.
And it's a great point about, coaches, they're CEOs, and they need to be sort of present in the moment, but they have to have some sense of the big picture. And that's a difficult balancing act.
Yeah.
Because, you in a company, you're going to have a CEO that's thinking more big picture, not as much in the minutia on the day-to-day. As a coach, though, you have to kind of be both, straddle both of those worlds of recognizing the big picture is important, but zeroing in on the day-to-day minutia.
And he knows big picture what it takes, but he's not, I don't think, allowing himself to worry about that, is what I would say. I mean, I'm sure he has those thoughts that cross his mind when he's at home or by himself or watching film, but he's not sharing that with anyone. You don't hear any of the assistant coaches talking about it either. I mean, top to bottom, they are all pretty locked in at, this is just the mentality of one game at a time, which is the coach speak. But I do believe
that I mean, it's like, as much as that's a coach speak answer, like, it's the truth, of course.
I think it is the truth for them, yeah.
But I think, like, to your point, he probably looks at every game and was like, if he evaluates in his head big picture, ultimately I'm sure what he's thinking is, I'll get to St. Patty's Day and then I'll think more about it.
Right.
It's probably mentally important for these coaches to have, like, specific time frames of check-ins on, okay, where is, like, because sports, you can get so caught up in the here and the now on, like, being a prisoner of the moment of, like, oh, there's too many turnovers in this game, or we're out rebounded in this game, or whatever, right? Like,
right.
And that could just be a one-game anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
If you have trends over the course of 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 basketball games, that's a much better sense of, if it happens in one game, it's an anomaly. If it's in 5 games, it's probably something that's more than an anomaly at that point.
Right. And he'll have areas where he knows his team, in these next 10 games, let's work on that. Like he said, we still need to be better at rebounding. Or with a certain player, he wants Kingston Flemings to get better at not turning the ball over. I mean, he is so dynamic as a point guard and playmaker, but just a freshman, he knows that there's still room to grow for him to take care of the ball. Or he knows Mila Suzanne is going to eventually shoot the ball better. Hasn't been shooting it great from deep compared to last year, but he knows that by this next checkpoint, that percentage will go up.
Always great to have Austin Ivan with us in studio. I am Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today. All right, I want to get more in depth on some of this with you, and I also want to talk a little bit about women's basketball, including what Audie Crooks is doing, because she's leading the nation in scoring, and she had a big-time performance this weekend. All that on the way. On the way next, though, Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver, joins us. Talk about the Orange Bowl. That's next. With Austin Ivan, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. Super excited to have Austin Ivan with us in studio. I am Ari Temkin. On social at Austin Ivan, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Usually somebody's
Austin
name.
with a Y.
Austin with a Y.
Yep. Ivan with an E. People sometimes do IVAN. So
Yeah, especially with the way it's pronounced. It's not.
Yeah.
I guess Ivan might be like
Yeah.
an E.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And then I'm Ari Sports because Temkin was too confusing for people to spell. They'd always put a P in it, so I just was like, let's just go Sports.
I like it.
Path of least resistance. You know, what's the easiest
and
way to find
it makes it a little bit different too. I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. Ari Sports. All right. Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. Talk through the incredible run that Texas Tech is on, all the way to the Orange Bowl. What's going on, Eric? How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing great. What is it like to see what Texas Tech is doing right now?
Man, it's phenomenal. You know, I don't think it's any better time to be a Red Raider.
And isn't it like, when you think about the teams you played on versus where they are now in terms of just how good they are up front, I mean, you watch them like, man, it would have been fun to play on teams that had this defensive front.
Absolutely. You know, defense is what wins games. So, you know, when you have a defensive front that strong like Texas Tech has, it makes football that much more fun to watch because defensive battles is what football is all about.
All right, who was on staff when you were at Texas Tech? Who was the offensive coordinator? Was Eric Morris there? Like, I'm trying to think through who the staff was when you were at Tech.
Well, when I was at Tech, I played under 3 head coaches. So, which years are we referring to? Like the later years or the earlier years? Or
Which head coach did you play for?
So I played for Mike Leach.
Right.
I played for Tommy Tuberville, and I played for Cliff King.
Yeah. And yeah, so I guess from like Cliff's staff, who would you have played under?
So Cliff's staff, it was Eric Morris. He was the offensive coordinator.
So what do you give us some standouts about Eric Morris? Obviously now as he takes over as Oklahoma State's head coach.
He was very consistent. You know, he was very detail oriented. He was hard nosed, meaning that, you know, he wanted it done a certain way. But he also was a player's coach, and so that's what made his players want to go out there and play hard for him.
Anything else stand out to you about Eric Morris as a man, coach?
He was family oriented. You know, he's a Christian. He's a God fearing man, and he loves his boys. And you know, as a coach myself, you know, I couldn't do nothing but respect that as a player. You know, when I was a senior, Eric was a few years older than I was. So he instantly had the respect from the room just by how he came in and delivered the message to the guys and his faith and his work ethic, you know, just instantly demanded respect.
Some of the other, in 2009, under Leach, you had Clay McGuire, running backs coach. You had Lincoln Riley as the receivers coach. Sonny Cumby was a grad assistant on that staff. What stood out to you about Lincoln when you played under him?
Lincoln was very quiet back then, but he was very detailed. He was actually my receivers coach when I was a freshman. You mentioned Clay McGuire. Clay McGuire recruited me. I was committed to Oklahoma. He was actually my recruiter. But Lincoln was very detail oriented. The way he watched film, he was very meticulous in how he broke things down. The players understood various intricacies of film watching based on how Lincoln delivered the components of film breakdown, and that's what made Leach's staff so much ahead of the curve opposed to all the other staffs. His subordinates, if you will, his assistant coaches.
Right.
They broke down the film and they taught football in the most simplest forms.
I want to go back and ask you about Coach Morris because I went to Oklahoma State, and so we're all excited to see what he does with the Cowboys next year. And everyone talks about how he's so good at finding these quarterbacks and developing them. From your perspective, what do you think makes him have that eye for the talent that might be a little bit under-recruited, and how do you see him work with those quarterbacks specifically?
I think, you know, even speaking of him himself, I think he was an underdog when he was being recruited. So I think, you know, he looks for the heart first, the passion second, and then he delivers the details third. And so speaking in reference to Coach Morris, I think he's a coach where he understands the passion of the game. And, you know, it's a lot of talent that gets overlooked when you're recruiting because everyone can't get recruited at the same time. It'd be impossible.
Yeah.
But when you find that guy who kind of slips through the cracks and has that it factor, it's easier to coach when you also know how it feels yourself when you came from that background as well.
Yeah, and with Morris, like, he's never had bad quarterbacks. Even, you look at like a couple of years at UNT where he didn't have Drew Mestemaker, but like the best seasons those quarterbacks ever had was under Eric Morris. You look at Chandler Morris at North Texas had put up his best seasons under Eric Morris. And to me, it's like, yeah, there's the big name guys, the Cam Wards and the Patrick Mahomes, but then there's also like the guys that maybe had anomaly type seasons with him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just that type of coach. He's a player's coach, and nowadays when you're dealing with so many different personalities on a roster, you have to have a special personality that can mold to those players. And I think Eric has that personality where he can adjust and mold to every type of player and get them to play hard for him.
But then also, like, you're talking about being an underdog, and that's great, but how it was 10 years ago, you could find those underdogs, give them a couple years to develop and grow within the system. Now you can't do that as much. So, I mean, that's an even more difficult battle that he has, because a lot of times you have less time with these players and you're trying to get the right guys right away that mesh and see what they can do on the field that exact season. So, I mean, just it's so different than how it was, I'm sure, than when you played.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I played, there weren't no NIL deals or transfer, if you were on
Yeah.
case may be, which I think I'm not against it, but I think now you have to have that keen eye to know what fits in your locker room and what doesn't. I think that starts with relationships. You have to make sure you can build relationships with kids that love football. And when I say love football, football is hard, especially at the collegiate level. They have to fall in love with the grind, the process, because coaches have to win and have to win now. So they have to find the right personalities to fit in their locker room and that are determined to go above and beyond and get that done.
Yeah, it's great stuff. We're talking here with Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver. As he mentioned, he played under 3 head coaches, Mike Leach at the end, Tommy Tuberville for a couple of years before he bolted, and then Cliff Kingsbury. Had Eric Morris as a co-offensive coordinator under Cliff Kingsbury. Also played for Clay McGuire, who was there under Mike Leach and is now back as the offensive line coach. So, just expand a little bit on Clay, unrelated to Joey. They have the same last name, but they're not related. But, like, what makes him a really good coach? Because especially when you look at this offensive line.
Again, I think the same component that each coach has is what makes them a great coach, and that's relationships. So I met Clay when I was about 17 years old.
Wow.
He was recruiting me out of Wichita Falls Ryder, which is the same high school that J-Rod has came out of. But Clay, when I first met Clay, he was young. Just think, man, that was almost 18 years ago, it feels like. But when I first met Clay, I didn't know about the recruitment process. I didn't even realize you can go to college at the time to play football until I got recruited, and I was like, whoa, it's like a dream.
Wow.
But the thing that stood out about Clay was how genuine he was and how willing he was to know about me, and so the relatability of that made me realize, like, oh man, it's more than just a business to him. He want to know me as a person. And so that kind of hit it off with me and Clay, and then that's what kind of made me interested in Texas Tech, and that's what actually got me here.
I just covered all the football state championship games at AT&T Stadium, and I know Coach McGuire obviously has that high school coaching background as well. How vital is that, do you think, to have that understanding and those connections with all those high school coaches across Texas, especially, where he can, find the best talent, because there is so much here in the state?
I think that's where he's ahead of the game. I actually played against Coach McGuire when I was in high school. But he was a great high school coach, and he won a lot of state championships, and he's a legend in the high school realm. And so part of that is building a network and building relationships with other coaches, so coaches trust you to coach their kids. And so when you're recruiting their players, they can be that second voice, supporting that player, like, hey, that's a great guy. He's family oriented. He loves kids. Obviously he's a high school coach, got the high school background. He has the pedigree. Why wouldn't you want to go play for someone like that?
All right, what do you think is the potential here for Oklahoma, or for Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl?
Well, I may be a little biased, but I think Tech's gonna win it all. I'm a Red Raider through and through, and I love what the coaching staff has done with the players. I've been up there from the summer, and I go up there sparingly now. But I just think they have the right pieces in the right place, the right people in the right seats to go down and as one of the greatest teams in Texas Tech history.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how often you get back, but that's cool that you still go and see the team and everything. What do you think though the X factor will be in this one?
The X factor is, taking care of the ball on offense, executing in the red zone, and getting off the field on third downs and making them punt the ball, and let's control the ball and control the tempo of the game.
And what are you doing now? You said you're coaching.
So I'm the head coach at Lubbock Estacado High School, which is about 5 minutes from Texas Tech. And so we're 4A Division II, and I'm going into my third season as a head coach.
That's awesome. You got any guys going to Tech?
I don't have any guys going to Tech, but I have about 11 that'll be signing. I have one that committed to Colorado State. I have another one that committed to San Angelo University, San Angelo State University, and I have about 9 more that'll be signing in February.
Have you lived in Lubbock since your playing days?
I have not. I actually moved back to Lubbock about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I took the job, and we won district my first year. And this second year we won. We made it to the area round. And so we're building the culture and we're building the program. And our program have a lot of rich tradition. And I'm just excited to be in this role, and I'm living my dream. I have 6 sons myself. And so it's exciting to see my sons grow in this role so I can teach them the intricacies about being a football player and being a young man.
You have 6 sons?
I have 6 sons.
Wow.
Yes,
That's like a jackpot right there.
it is. My wife and I, we have 6 boys.
Are they all football players?
They're all football players. My oldest son is actually our varsity quarterback. He played this past season as a freshman. He threw for 1,300 yards.
Wow.
What's that dynamic like of coach at, work, dad at home, always coach 24/7? I mean, how do you split that?
Well, I hire people that I know that can coach him. So for my oldest son is 15. I had my oldest son going into college.
Wow.
I raised him my entire time while playing football at Texas Tech. And so he and our relationship is a lot different than, I would say, my other 5 sons, because we actually grew up together, if you will.
Yeah.
But, at the high school level, you want to hire people that you entrust with your son. So I hired a lot of good coaches that are also good teachers, and I trust them to coach him up. And I've trained him since he was 8, so I don't worry about the details of the game. I just want to make sure he's getting coached the right way and he can lead the team, which is what a quarterback's supposed to do.
So he's like probably maybe two starting quarterbacks away from being the next starting quarterback at Texas Tech, we think?
Hey, that's his goal, But honestly, me playing college sports, I wanted him to extract the principles from the sports, such as being a good person, being a great mate, hard work. And, if college football is in his vision and goes as a player, I wish him nothing but the best, but I'm more concerned on his academics and him being a great person and learning the intricacies of the sports, such as being a great person and hard work.
Yeah.
I just want to know, as a whole, not just necessarily with your son, what is your coaching style? I mean, you've played for a lot of different coaches throughout your career. I'm sure you've taken a little bit of everything, but overall, what would you say? I mean,
are you more Mike Leach or Cliff?
Right.
I think I'm in the middle. I don't think, I'm not a cantankerous person. I think Mike Leach was really strict, but he's an awesome coach and he's a legendary coach. But I think I'm a player's coach, but at the same time, I draw the line and we get things done. I'm relatable to my players, but they also know I mean business. But overall, I'm very serious, especially when it comes to football, because, football is a game of inches. So you have to have a lot of attention to details, no mistakes. So I think I'm assertive, if you will. I have assertive coaching style.
Yeah. Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver, now coaching out there in Lubbock. That's amazing. We'll have to keep in touch, and
yes, sir.
Good luck to your teams moving forward, and good luck to your Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Thank you.
Yeah, I cover a lot of high school football, so maybe I'll have one of your games next season.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Eric, appreciate your time again. Good luck with your Red Raiders. Can't wait to see what they do in the Orange Bowl and the Peach Bowl, and then maybe back at the Orange Bowl for the national championship. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Take care. Wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em. There you go. Eric Ward, former Texas Tech wide receiver. Very unique perspective, too, having played for Leach and Kingsbury with Tommy Tuberville in between. But you think about two guys cut from the same cloth, where Cliff King's from Mike's coaching tree, but they're totally different personality-wise.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times it can be a blessing in disguise to learn from so many different coaches.
Yeah.
And especially when you go on and continue your career, you do get to take a little bit of everything and understand different schemes, different styles, and take what you like from all of those. And that helps you as a player. So you just get different perspectives that some players don't. I mean, I had two head coaches my whole career, one in high school and one in college. So a really different perspective that he had.
Yeah, and there's probably value to both. There's definitely, there's like most things, pros and cons to both.
Exactly.
But I think if you're going to be a coach, it's super important to, if you, let's say, played under two coaches your entire career, probably better to go and learn under multiple coaches just to get different perspectives.
Especially, going into coaching for him. I think that's, just to see how coaches' mindset works in different ways and just their approach to certain things. And now being a head coach, there's a lot more that's on your plate. So just seeing, how you just divvy things up and try things a different way. So definitely for coaching, I think that's super beneficial.
That's the voice of Austin Ivan. I am Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. You can hear it on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios. All right, more with Austin, including her thoughts on what Audie Crooks is doing and on the women's basketball side of things, plus a little bit more on the men's basketball side of things, and we'll dig in further on what she's talking about with Houston. It's all coming up. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Great to have you with us today and every day here on your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. Austin Ivan hanging out with us in studio. Taman Turner is producing, and Anthony Smith is producing back at our Big 12 Studios headquarters. Did you see Georgetown head basketball coach Ed Cooley? He did not keep his coolie and chucked a water bottle. Did you see this video?
No.
Okay, so he got mad during a Georgetown game. He chucked his water bottle, just kind of like frustratingly threw it.
Onto the court?
Well, he probably should have, because he aimed it towards his bench and the stands. So he chucked his water bottle and hit a little kid with it.
Oh, no.
The boy, quote unquote, suffered a serious concussion and was rushed to the emergency room in critical condition.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
I know. So, first thought is, the heck is he doing? Second thought is, I didn't realize a water bottle could be so dangerous.
Yeah, I'm like, that must have been full with water to make it extra heavy.
No, it was an empty water bottle.
Empty?
I guess.
A plastic, Gatorade bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, he must have a strong arm then.
A strong arm coupled with, I don't know, but yeah, he just chucked it, and he just didn't miss. It was point blank. This kid is, in his mom's lap. Chucked a water bottle, hit him right in the face.
We didn't think we were at a baseball game where we had to pay attention to foul balls. What are we doing? We had one incident when I was in college. It was in the locker room, so no one saw it. But coach got pretty mad and threw the clipboard, and it hit the wall, snapped in half, and it ricocheted and hit a couple people. But it was so intense, we couldn't even flinch or act like it faced us. But we're making sure we're not cut up or whatever. But we're if we even try to go pick up that clipboard, he's gonna start yelling more. So we just had to act like that didn't happen. But that's the closest.
Well, that's why I brought this up, because I was thinking how many crazy incidents have we seen like this? And a lot of times, with Bobby Knight, it was, hurling things at players and hurt them. Or
just yelling at the refs. But they try to keep their composure, I guess, in front of fans. I mean, you never know what a practice looks like or in the locker room, but throwing stuff, I guess, is a lot.
I mean, he was suspended for a game. So this happens at the end of the Georgetown loss to Xavier, 80-77. He chucks his water bottle and it accidentally hits a child sitting in the second row in his mom's lap.
Yeah, and sometimes, coaches want to go a little bit extra with their aggressiveness to try to fire their players up.
Right.
But there's a line with that. I mean, throwing something into the stands, and obviously, I'm sure he didn't mean, obviously, to hit anyone or anything to happen. But you do see coaches every once in a while to pull out that card. We're okay, they're not listening to me. They're not doing what I'm saying. Maybe this will get them going. I might get ejected. I might have to watch the rest of the game from the locker room, but I need to inspire them somehow. So.
I mean, Bill Self, I feel is famous for this.
Right.
There's moments in a season where you can tell, oh, Bill's about to get ejected or throw a fit, get a technical in order to. He doesn't get ejected very often, but to have a technical just to set a moment to his team and be wake up.
Right. Yeah, and you'll see some coaches they're wanting one, and they're gonna keep going at the refs, and the refs are just pushing them away, and they're they keep going because they're come on,
just give me a tee.
Come on, so exactly.
Just tee me up,
exactly.
Please, damn it.
Yep.
All right, so you've seen a coach throw a clipboard so hard against the wall to break it. Anything else you've seen like that? Maybe not necessarily your coach, but you've observed from the sidelines something crazy like that. Most times it happens, we don't notice it because nobody, it's nobody gets hurt.
No, I mean, the only other thing in practice, our coach would just soccer ball kick the basketball up into the air. It would never hit anyone, but that was just kind of toss it up and then just wind up the leg and kick it as high as he could.
I would do that a lot if I were a head coach.
Yeah. You would? That would be your move.
Kicking basketballs it's fun.
It would be fun. That would get some aggression out for sure. You would feel people throw will go places and axe,
throw axes
or break plates or whatever to get
frustration out.
Yep, yeah. But yours would just be kicking the basketball.
Yeah, because the key would be you'd have to punt it.
Yeah.
Because I feel I'd get so frustrated with something and I try to kick it after a rebound and then I'd probably miss
it and
That'd be way more embarrassing than.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Then I'd be mad. Like, that would only amp up my frustration. I'd be mad at myself for looking stupid.
Exactly. That's exactly that would happen to me too. Honestly, I never played soccer or any sport with my feet that had to. Yeah. So no.
You'd make sure like pick it up and then punt it.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
That's the key.
Oh.
Got to do that. All right. So let's talk some hoops. We talked to Ed Cooley there and his ridiculous antics with the water bottle. Audie Crooks. Would she have 41 last night?
I think so. And
And like
buzzer beater win. I think it was a pretty close game. I think it was over Kansas. It was a 2-point game.
a great way to start Big 12 play.
Yeah, especially like you now have probably 10-day break before you play the next game. 5 days completely off. I don't know what their schedule is exactly, but that definitely gives you a little bit of momentum and a boost, and you get to go home and enjoy some days off knowing that you just got a win compared to the other side of things for Kansas when you end on a loss and you have to wait a week plus before you can play again.
Yeah, so Samaya Nichols tied this game at 76, and then it's Kenzie Hare made a 3-point shot off of Addie Brown's assist with a second left as a buzzer beater to win this one 79-76. I mean, it was a game that 100% lived up to the billing. Tough spot for Kansas to start off Big 12 play with an undefeated Iowa State team that's top 10, but I think they showed out well in this one.
They did, for sure. And I think Kansas started out strong. There was definitely some waves in this one. Kenzie Hare, I think she had one shot the entire game.
And that was it?
In the first half, missed it, and then her second shot was the game-winning shot.
Yeah, 1 of 2.
Yeah.
34 minutes, 3 points, 1 of 2. Audie Crooks, 30 minutes, 41 points on 28 shots. I mean, she is insane.
And Coach Finley, I think he was like, she should have had 50 plus. But
I mean, in 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, if you're shooting 27 layups, you should have had 50 plus. But you love that about a coach where it's like you could have done better. You could have had a couple more. Never satisfied, but yeah, I mean, Audie Crooks is so dominant, and Kansas didn't double a lot, which was interesting. I mean, Audie's getting triple teamed a lot of games, and for the most part, they were playing Audie one-on-one, and especially if you're behind her and you can throw it into her easily,
it's over.
She can turn around, shoot.
Right.
She can take one dribble, get to the bucket. So
you let her catch in there, it's over.
Exactly. You're too late then at that point. So you have to kind of front and then have that help defender behind because, yeah, she's just so dominant. Has such control. There really is no answer for her when you're a defense trying to think of ways to stop her.
And we've seen dominant posts in women's college basketball before. What, in your mind, separates her?
Her strength, the way that she gets position. I mean, she's smart. She doesn't get sped up. She has different things in her toolbox that she can use. I mean, she did a couple fadeaways we saw. I mean, she's just... Yeah. And then I think what also makes her better is she has great players around her. And so, like I said, Kansas didn't double a lot. And so she got to go one-on-one. But the second she gets doubled, she is smart enough. She is a willing passer where she's okay kicking it back out and letting a teammate shoot an open three. Like, she's totally fine with that. And so that's what makes it even more difficult is because there is balance on the floor with whoever's around her.
What strategy you'd go double team front and back and like allow other players to hit you to kill you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the guard ball pressure on the perimeter. You have to apply some pressure to make it difficult to get it into Audie. Harass them where they feel sped up, where they don't have time to wait, look, which way am I going to get it into Audie? So it starts with the guard pressure more than anything. But once you're talking about Audie specifically, I think you got to, have a hand in denial and be in front of her to some degree, and then have the help side defender ready to immediately slide over the second you see the ball in the air going to her.
The top of the Big 12 in women's college basketball was fantastic in terms of the games this weekend because, so we mentioned the Kansas-Iowa State game where Iowa State hits a 3 at the buzzer to win it in a tie game. And how about Texas Tech?
Yeah.
In a crucial year for them, they start off 14-0. They had another win. They start off Big 12 play with a win, 61-60 over Baylor, who's been obviously the class of the Big 12.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a really good bunch of teams at the top that, like, you don't know how everything is going to play out throughout this conference season, and we're just getting started here, with those first conference games of the year this week. But that was big for Texas Tech, and they just have balance. I mean, I think Bailey Maupin maybe had 11 points, but she's kind of their do-it-all facilitator player, and but that just tells you right there that they have different playmakers. They don't have that one Audie Crooks or that Olivia Miles that is going to go off like those two players, but they definitely have some balance, and they've been good to start the year.
Yeah, Maupin hit the 2 free throws at the end that decided this one. It was 60-59. Then Maupin makes 2 free throws with 3 seconds left that decided it. But to go on the road to start Big 12 play for a Texas Tech team that has just been, not good, has underachieved the last few years.
And the key thing, like you said, it's on the road. It wasn't even a home game. Like, to go to Waco, play Baylor, a ranked opponent. Coach Gerlich has to be happy.
Another team at the top, Oklahoma State.
They look good too.
Yeah, 12-2. They beat Cincinnati very badly, 91-63. Another road game. Now Cincinnati's down big, but still impressive to go on the road anytime you go on the road and get a win.
Yeah, they I love what Coach Hoyt's doing there. She's been great for the program. These players are so bought in with her. She is a player's coach for sure. And she has them playing well together. Got some great 3-point shooters, some really impressive athletes as well, and she has a good mesh of some players from last year and some new additions.
And then Arizona State stayed undefeated. They beat Colorado by 16. Impressive win there. They're 14-0. Molly Miller's team. All she does is win.
I know. I would have loved to play for a coach like Molly Miller. Yeah, when we talked with her at Big 12 Media Days before the season, I was just like, I don't know. She just has an energy about her.
Yeah. A confidence, a bravado.
Yeah, it would just be easy to buy in. Whatever she's selling, I'm buying.
I'll take 2 of those.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, totally. Anything else stand out to you about this first weekend of hoops? There's one more conference game tonight. It's Utah and Arizona. Beyond that, though, this seems to be a very top-heavy league.
Yes.
TCU is 13-0. They beat Kansas State pretty handedly. BYU is 12-1. They took care of business against UCF. You mentioned undefeated Arizona State, undefeated Texas Tech. Iowa State and Kansas are still very much at the top of the conference. West Virginia gets a big win over Houston.
I think they had 25 steals on Houston, and Houston is the team that is known to want to turn people over. They want to apply that defensive pressure, and I think it was
25 steals.
25 steals, yep.
23 fast break points. Think about that. They had more steals than fast break points.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. I didn't watch any of that game, but I have Houston on
36 turnovers for Houston.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Coach Mitchell, I think, is going to be a really great
coach. Year one, it's tough.
It's tough trying to bring in a completely new team. They had one player from last year's squad in Kiera Merchant, so a new team completely. He has a couple good freshmen that I think he can build off of, but just trying to get all the pieces together in place and have his system ready to go. It's going to take a little bit, but that was dominance by West Virginia.
Yeah, how do you win 101-46? I don't know, 36 turnovers, 25 steals.
Yeah,
it's probably a good way to win by 50.
Just fast break, transition. I don't even know if they were setting up in the half court. If they're just getting steals and breakaways.
Live ball
left and
turnovers.
right. Yeah.
Brutal. Austin, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me. Have a good Christmas. Have a good holiday break.
Thank you. You too.
Enjoy your time in California.
Florida.
Why did I say California?
It's crazy. It's going to be hotter here than it is in Florida, but whatever. I'll make it work.
Yeah. This weather has been
great.
Can't complain.
Who wants a white Christmas,
Every once in a while. I guess if you're inside and not traveling or going anywhere, but yeah, I'll take the nice weather.
I did some karaoke this weekend, by the way. Sang some White Christmas.
I was going to say, what's your song?
Yeah.
Okay, we went Christmas theme. And
yeah, so I was at a bar. It was a friend's birthday. We were all having fun. Then karaoke starts, and there's all these songs being played. And I'm thinking like, what's going on here? What's with the lack of Christmas music?
Come on, we got to get in the holiday spirit.
It's Christmas season. If
Yeah.
there's one time to be doing karaoke for Christmas, this was it.
And I feel like the crowd would love that
Yes.
too. So that was a good choice.
I got the crowd all fired up,
For
amped
sure.
up.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's funny, they give me the mic. They're like, do you know how to use this? I'm like, this is literally the only thing I can do. Like, I can't sing, but I can like talk into a microphone. That's like my only appreciable skill set. That's it.
I can. So you're just trying to talk with a different range in your
Yes.
voice.
Yeah.
It's similar.
But I mean, White Christmas is an easy one because you just got to go low.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I just really get to show off the low, the
Good
baritone.
for you. I don't know if I have the confidence to go out there and do karaoke.
You know, I may have had a few cocktails
A little
that
bit of
may have
liquid
helped.
courage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no,
Austin, you got to have something.
You need liquid
You don't
courage.
just do it just to
You
do
gotta
it.
you gotta have the buddies that are encouraging you, and then
and I'm not gonna lie, like there were some impressive karaoke people that got up there. Like there was one girl that got up there, like she was dancing and like moving around the whole bar. It was kind of impressive. And then I kind of got up afterwards and just I didn't really dance that much.
yeah.
I feel like I nailed the Big
This was
Crosby.
a solo performance. You didn't even have
Solo?
any backup singers.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, all my friends left me hung out to dry.
Good for you. Do you have footage? I need to see this video.
I might.
Okay.
Might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to
I'll
send
have
that
to
to me.
send that to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll have to have you again in studio with us in the new year.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love to talk more hoops.
And
Anytime.
then you're going to be doing the Houston Middle Tennessee State game on the 29th.
29th, and then I have the Houston women's game on the 31st. So.
Who are they playing then?
Oh gosh, let's see.
On New Year's Eve.
It might be Iowa State.
Oh no.
Yeah. It is Iowa State.
Wow.
Yep. So I'll talk some more Audie Crooks after that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Austin Ivan joining us in studio. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Studios, presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Big 12 Radio, Big 12 Today. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. If you missed any of our great interviews on today's show, including Austin Ivan hanging out with us for an hour, Fran Fraschilla, of course, from ESPN, joined us in the first hour of the show. Brian Thornton, the VP of Big 12 basketball, joined us. Pete Nakos, On3 college football insider. Cam Mellor, Chiefs analytics officer for the Pro Football Sports Network and the College Sports Network. Austin Ivan, and then Eric Ward, the former Texas Tech wide receiver, now a football coach in the Lubbock area. If you missed any of those great interviews, make sure to check it out wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or TuneIn On Demand. Check out all of the platforms in which you can hear all those great interviews that we had on today's show. All right. I mentioned last segment I did some karaoke this weekend, and I was at a bar on Friday night. It was a great sports night. You had the Oklahoma-Alabama game. I sang a little White Christmas. If you were to sing karaoke for a Christmas song, what would you sing, Taman?
I don't know.
Wow, I feel like I just asked you, like, what's the cure for cancer? Just like, it's just a basic, what Christmas? I'm not going to make you sing it, Taman. Just give me a Christmas song. Jingle Bells.
Yeah, there you go. Jingle Bells. Let's go. I had to think. How
about the song that's playing right now?
Yeah. Oh, what fun it is to rock.
Could have gone Rocking Around the Christmas Tree, Little Drummer Boy, Oh Holy Night. That one's tough.
Yeah, I don't have the I don't have that voice.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough note to hit. You got to have an incredible singing voice. But I think you just hit the notes there. That was good. So I also caught the Netflix fight, Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. Did you see any of that?
I did not. No.
Yeah, and I can't tell you like I went and sought out the fight. I just happened to be at a bar on Friday night with some friends for a birthday, and so the fight's on. And so one of my friends that was there is British, so it felt like he was more of an authority on what we were watching. It's like Anthony Joshua's British, so he's a gold medalist from Great Britain, so it felt like he had a good sense of this. But like, I used to watch a ton of boxing. Haven't watched a ton of boxing recently. I knew Jake Paul was kind of a sideshow, and I feel like he proved it during this. Like, it was sort of brutal to watch, and he's getting some credit now for 6 freaking rounds. Like, he kept falling, Jake Paul. He kept trying to hug Anthony Joshua. Like, and I get that that's part of a bout. Like, that's a big part of it, but it just felt like he was running away. Like, he was trying to make it go as long as it possibly could. Like, how long can I continually take punches from this dude and not die? And we got close, because in the ring, he was very woozy at the end there, and finally got knocked out. And then you see some pictures of they had to surgically reattach his jaw, and his face is all blown up. Like, he looks like he got the S kicked out of him. And again, I'm left thinking, is this real? This is where we're at in boxing in 2025. You've got some social media darling that decided he wanted to be a boxer, and now he's trained for however long he's trained for to try to become a boxer, and yet he's getting in the ring with this dude that doesn't even have to move in order to knock him out. He's given up 4 inches from this dude.
So you're saying he's really bad for boxing?
I'm trying to figure out if he's bad or not. He's a sideshow and a joke, and this fight was a joke, but it's also probably the most relevant boxing match I've seen in a long time. And I don't even know, maybe relevance is the issue here, because Jake Paul seems to be a sideshow. I don't know. He got in the ring with Mike Tyson. This is a joke. Fight actual boxers. And now we're seeing him fight actual boxers, and everybody's complaining about that too. So part of me is all right, cool for him to actually getting in a ring with an actual boxer, because everybody complained about, he's fighting Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson's over the hill. This is stupid.
By the way, have you heard the latest Mike Tyson fight coming in the spring against Floyd Mayweather?
Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather?
Yes. That's happening in spring of 2026.
What happened to Floyd? Why does he need the money? I feel like he's still got. What happened to money?
I think Floyd this is just all about ego. I don't think he needs the money. I just think he wants to say he beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Poor Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Remember the butt shot on Netflix?
Well, and I mean, if Netflix is going to keep paying him, he's going to keep fighting in these fights.
I mean,
just let Mike be. Can we just pay Mike not to fight? Can somebody give Mike Tyson some money not to fight?
How disappointed were you in that Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight back in last year?
Well, I was disappointed because I didn't watch it.
Well, be glad you didn't watch it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could have
buffered on Netflix for a good 2 hours, and then
Yeah.
it was the lamest thing that I stayed up for ever.
Oh yeah, no, it was. I mean, first of all, it was the reason the Big 12 Media Days was moved from Arlington to Vegas because the bout was originally scheduled for that time, and then they had to move it. But yeah, I mean,
you didn't miss much.
I just feel bad. Well, I mean, I saw the highlights of it. Now, I knew, like, yeah, I'd be able to see the highlights. But like, here's the thing that makes me go back and give Jake Paul credit. I don't want to, but everybody complained with that fight. Jake Paul should fight an actual boxer. Like, if he wants to be a boxer, go fight an actual fighter.
Yeah, you mean somebody who's not in his 60s?
Right. which I agree with. But then he did it, and he's going up against, like, this dude was so much taller and wider reaching than him. It's like, was ridiculous. Like, Anthony Joshua could punch Jake Paul in any part of the ring without moving, basically. Like, that's how long his reach is. So, like, people are going to complain that he fought Tyson, but then and then say, like, get in the ring with an actual boxer, but then he gets in the ring with an actual boxer and people are complaining about that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like, well, what do you want?
There's nobody's satisfied, no matter what he does.
Like, you know, and again, watching it was frustrating because all Jake Paul was doing was trying to avoid getting hit for as long as he possibly could so that he could last in the ring and make more money. Basically, the longer he went in the ring, the more money he'd make. So it's like, oh, let's sit here and watch how slowly Anthony Joshua can beat up Jake Paul while he earns money every second he's in the ring.
I'm gonna use the term, it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a given. And, it's funny because Jake Paul could still be making money doing literally anything. And he's just like, I want to be a boxer. Okay. So that was that. What else happened this weekend?
I watched the documentary that James mentioned, the Diddy documentary.
Oh.
I watched all 4 episodes.
Okay.
That was very interesting.
So any insight, because my 10-year-old came home from school asking me about Diddy.
Yeah. What did he ask?
He just asked me about Diddy. What did he do? And I was like, go look over there. Go play over there.
Yeah.
Just don't ask me about this.
Right.
So anything I can tell him?
He's a very bad man.
Okay.
Very, very bad man.
So the documentary explores that.
Yes. It goes into the killings of both Biggie and Tupac, and it appears that he could have had a role. I don't want to say definitively, but it makes you ask some legitimate questions. And the major thing that I got out of it is that there have been a lot of events of violence. We talk about Tupac and Biggie, but there was the J-Lo shooting. There was a New York City stampede in the early 90s. There just always seems to be violence that follows this man. And he is involved and somehow gets off.
Yeah.
And he's always like the common denominator.
He seems to be the guy that likes to pick fights and then let like his group pile on.
Yes. And other people get hurt and or killed from it, but he somehow gets scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, you can't convince me that it wasn't who's Tupac's old manager?
Suge Knight.
Suge Knight.
Yeah.
You can't convince me that it wasn't Suge Knight behind both the deaths of Biggie and Pac. But I could see how much P. Diddy benefited from the death.
I will say this,
Biggie.
Watch the documentary, and I'm not going to say it's going to change your mind, but it will definitely make you ask questions. Was he involved in some way? For sure.
Yeah, I'm just not going to watch the documentary. I'm just not going to waste my life doing that.
No, fair. I watched it Friday night and Saturday when my son was taking.
No, and I'm not judging. I'm just prioritizing certain things I want to waste my life on, and that's not one of them. All right, we're back tomorrow for our final episode prior to the Christmas season. James Wessing will be back with us tomorrow. Thanks to our great work from our producer Taban Turner. Thanks to Anthony Smith back at our Big 12 headquarters. For Big 12 Studios, I am Ari Tebkin. We're back tomorrow, but for now we're out. Peace.